following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all nerds! International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, are my good friends and co-hosts, Chris Holmes and Stefan Dragonspawn. How we doing, fellas? Starting with you, Chris.
What? Oh, yeah, I'm awake. Tryptophan from Turkey. From Thanksgiving. No. Dude, I smoked a turkey for Thanksgiving first time. It was great. My daughter, Alexi, said it was perfect.
I smoked a turkey, too.
Did you?
Yeah, I hit it with my Jeep.
Did you really? Dude, turkeys and fucking... I don't doubt it because he hit deer, right? I mean... Well, if you do have to hit the turkey, mail that fucker to me and I'll smoke it. No, it was a good weekend and whatever with the family and gaming and now hanging with you guys. Stefan, how about you, buddy? How you doing?
Me, I'm trying to stay warm. We've been hit by a snowstorm. I'm trying to stay warm next to my lava lamp here. So
Nice.
No, been reading notes about all the good stuff that the Foundry's coming out with. So other than
Perfect.
that, no, just working on my games, my Dragonstar game. Still working on notes about that.
Awesome sauce.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Tony?
Yeah. Well,
I've been relatively busy working last 2 weeks, but I did have the last 2 days off work. By accident, of course. I've just worked so many hours, they weren't able to give me any more.
you've worked all the hours.
So then I proceeded to take my wife out shopping, and yeah, there went all the money I made.
Oh, dude, speaking of which, I had a fucking horrible mistake. Major despair on my driving roll Friday because I went to FFG to go get the expanded player's guide and GM screen. No, they didn't have it. FFG, you didn't have it in your goddamn store. But I went down the street and got it at the source. Ha! But before I did that, I have to make a left turn coming out of the FFG center. And I always do, because that's the shortest way to get to the source. That took me by Southdale Mall. That was fucking stupid. Black Friday. I'm like, oh, god damn it. That was horrible. And I had to get my paints and stuff for my Legion minis. No, yeah, major despair on my driving check. So thank you guys.
Yeah, because Chris lives near the FFG headquarters. So
Yes, I do.
And so the other thing I've been doing is I was asked to write an Eberron campaign, D&D Shift 7D Eberron campaign for my friendly local game store. So I've got 5 players, and we start in January. It'll be bi-weekly on the off Wednesday from our Star Wars week. And
Awesome.
Star Wars Starfinder, whatever we're playing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be in there at the friendly local game store running D Shift 7D, which means I may end up trying to convert some more people to Genesys and start running one shots up there too. So
There you go. That's good.
We'll see.
Oh, Eberron, such a great campaign setting. I love it. And that new book is beautiful. My God.
It's beautiful, and it covers a lot.
Yeah.
So today in our show, this is episode 46, entitled "Magically Delicious: Magic Revisited."
Get my Lucky Charms.
they're magically delicious.
How long that take us to make that reference?
Yeah,
Not
it's
long.
trademark.
Previously, and I knew it would be. This was a listener-suggested show title. Thank you to one of our tens of listeners that suggested it.
We don't have tens of them. Can't remember who did it.
Sorry.
But our very first show on Magic was way back in the first episode.
Dude, that was
we
our
did,
first episode. Yeah, it was
where we invited on some friends and we talked about Magic as
Jamie.
Genesis.
I think
Yeah,
you, Jamie, and I we did like the Tri-Wizard, Tri-Magi or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Three Magi. Yeah, it was our
Magi.
very first episode.
That's great.
Since then, Magic has grown in our hearts and minds, and it has grown also with the addition of items from both the Foundry and from the Expanded Player's Guide. So we're going to go over a bunch of that.
Oh yeah.
But beforehand, we got to do some listener feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So first, we'll talk about we got several comments and suggestions. But first, I want to talk about, before we do listener feedback, I want to talk about our voting contest about our skills.
You don't have that in the show notes here, Tony.
Nope. I surprised you, buddy.
Yeah.
So Chris
here we go.
got about 30% of the overall vote for knowledge mazes.
Dudes, everybody who voted for that, love you. Thank you. That's great.
However, he did not win.
Yeah, I know.
So he gets a participation trophy, and I've done something with our skills and brought it up to my two co-hosts here, and they both seem to enjoy it. So, but I will bring up the one comment that we got that was well done and put me in the right mindset to fix it.
Okay.
So it's from Nick Briseno. He started out over on YouTube, just made a couple suggestions, and I wanted him to elaborate. So I asked him to send me an email, and he did. He sent this. Tony, you asked to write a suggestion I made in YouTube comments, so here it is. First, keep up the good work. Love the show and the interaction between the three of you. The original comment I made was, you could have mental assault be career specific and defense be available to all. After listening to you talk about mental assault, mental defense, cool, discipline, so on and so forth, I figured you could do mostly the same thing and stick a little closer to the same concept originally presented, locking only mental assault behind careers and talents, and while opening mental defense to everyone. It then takes specific training or an inherent talent in order to use your presence as a weapon in mental assault. But the strong sense of self or will can make anyone capable of defending themselves with mental defense to some extent. You could even leave fear defense and under mental defense as a sort of, since it's a sort of discipline substitute, as you all stated, rather than moving it to cool, like you wanted. Really, this is sort of a solution then might only add one skill, mental assault, which in many ways acts as a specific magic skill, and renaming discipline to mental defense. They're thematically on par with what you're looking for. Mental assault can be used to like a normal magic skill, and so on and so forth. It goes in a little bit more, but and he goes, as a bonus, Chris' suggestion of knowledge mazes fits thematically, and mind map mazes, misdirections, Tor, as in centaur or minotaur, inception aspects of your setting, you're all describing, and the mental battle or manipulation too. Just a few thoughts. Hope all is going well. Hope to see some of this stuff you all have been working on, aka Primordial Machina, Madness Rules, new settings, so on and so forth, up on the Foundry soon. Semper Fi, Nick Briseno, or Targol. So thank you, Nick, first of all, for writing us and giving us that great, you got my creative juices flowing.
Nice.
And so
well done, Nick.
I wanted to cover what I actually did. So what I did was one of the things I noticed that we were tripping over in the show was we kept saying mental attack, mental assault, mental attack, mental assault. We kept messing it up. Me and Stefan both kept saying the wrong thing and meaning the other thing. So I decided, you know what? Let's not call it mental assault. Let's call it more like a hacking, getting into somebody's computer. We call it mental intrusion. So mental intrusion will be our presence-based hacking skill for hacking the mind of another being.
Nice.
By description of it is intrusion represents the offensive and destructive uses of mentalism. It covers any attempts at evading the mind of another being. Any mentalist worth the title is going to be good at intrusion. So only those that have spent a career or have some racial aptitude or have a talent will be able to use this skill.
Nice.
So that one's locked behind a few things. Career, one of our races now has that as a starting skill.
Cool.
And then, or we may create a tier 2 talent that also lets a person become a mentalist. So
nice.
Right.
And then
That's great.
liked the idea of discipline staying what it is, instead of calling it mental defense and saying it does the same things that discipline does. Let's just call it mental discipline.
Yep.
It combines what discipline already does on top of being the defense role for sysops type roles when defending your mind against psionics or against mental intrusion. Simple as that.
Yeah, sounds good.
And lastly, we have knowledge mentalism. So I erased knowledge mazes. However, as a consolation prize, there's a little something in here on that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
buddy.
read my little bit that I did on that for you guys. Mentalism in its infancy was defined as the simple process of manipulating the mind of another through technological or psionic means. Since its inception, love that word, eons ago, in the ethereal towers of the Cedars, the process of mentalism has grown not only in numbers of practitioners, but also in scope and method. Though prolific and advanced mentalism, or so prolific and advanced, mentalism takes a tremendous amount of training, and those that adhere to its processes are in high demand across the universe. So this is the knowledge of mentalism. This is the knowledge that's linked to our two mental discipline and mental intrusion, like you would have for computers. The knowledge, the net that is linked.
Yep.
So, but also we wanted it to do something else. So also, while invading the minds of intended targets or defending the minds of others is the primary purpose of the mental arts, the creation of mental constructs and mind mazes
Yeah, baby.
has become a lucrative trade and is the purvey of the mentalist knowledge. So
That's great.
knowledge mentalism will be your crafting skill for creating like computer programs like ICE in
Yeah, there you
in
go.
Ice and icebreakers.
icebreakers. Your ICE and your icebreakers are going to be those mental constructs, and then mental mind mazes are literally what hold. They are the network that holds the constructs in place.
I love it.
Nice.
That's fun. This is going to be fun, man.
Yeah.
So by hacking the hacking rules into mind hacking, we've now got it down, I think.
There we
I
go.
think.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think that's good. Every iteration we go on this, it's a process. And when all of you out there are creating your own settings, just have an open mind.
Yeah.
And see what I did there? You know, and then just, discuss
It's amazing.
It's amazing. That's right. It sure is.
So are you happy with your participation trophy, Chris, with the mind mazes being a part of this?
I love it. I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. And thank you, everybody, for voting.
And since we did have a few fringe votes for lumberjacking, we have some ideas on that when we come to the careers
yeah.
section of our building our new setting.
Yeah.
And you guys, I hope, will love that. Those of you who are looking to play a lumberjack. So,
Yes.
but that was our listener feedback for this week. Now we're on to something new and special.
Okay, everybody, here we have a new segment, part of the show, called Boosting the Signal. And this is where Stefan is going to share all the hot and steamy Genesis news, fresh off the wire, on the Foundry, and then he's going to review a project from the Foundry as well. So, what you got there for us, Stefan?
All right. Thank you, Chris, for that wonderful, sexy intro. So,
Figured you'd appreciate that.
and I have 4 little elements. Some people are very prolific, it seems, these days. So first off, I want to do a shout out as a congratulations to Scott Zumwald. He won the latest Genesis Foundry Spotlight. So people voted for his product, the Something Strange product.
Which is great.
It's now silver level of sales, which is good. Congratulations to him. He made a quality product.
Absolutely, he did.
Mm-hmm. And then there's two other little elements that are fairly new in the last week or so. One is called the Monstrum Encyclopedia by Mount Ogden Gaming. They've got two products, and they're going to keep upgrading one product and coming up with some features. One features the Chimera, and the other one is just different types of creatures that he'll just be adding. But it's not just creatures with their stat blocks. It's what these creatures do. There's a bit of an old ecology of like another popular awesome. D20 system does, with some battle tactics and so forth thrown in.
Nice.
And a fairly new one is, let's say, additional supplement rules called Critical Elements. So it expands a bit on the critical hits tables of Genesis, as well as adding maybe a bit more little crunch, let's say, with hit locations if the player wants, where the game master and player wants that. So he's figured out a way to, with additional tables of figuring out that, with also new talents that will help, the critical hits kind of aspect of the combat.
Well, that's cool.
So maybe we can go over it another time, because there's lots of stuff to go over. But there are two little products that can flesh out those aspects. Mm-hmm. And the one we're going to focus on, because our show is so-called the Magically Delicious, is Zenithric's Guide to Magic, again by Scott Zumwalt. He created this guide to expand a bit on Magic and explain it maybe a bit better, hopefully, for maybe new players that maybe are more used to having a source book that has all these spells, already defined in other systems. Well, this, of course, hopefully explains the rules in a more condensed version. It has 21 pages, separated into 4 sections. His introduction, which goes over the basic rules of Magic, some sample spell customizations, new spells, which he creates, and then creating implements as well, sort of a guideline to creating implements, which kind of was missing in the basic book, because you can customize your gear, like weapons and armor, but not implements. So creating stuff there. So like I said, at the beginning, you just do a big spellcasting overview. So you can print these out, let's say, and hand them to your players if they want a quick resume of what they need to know and do. Mm-hmm. And then he goes over some spells that he created real quickly for both Arcane, Divine, and Primal, with the different magic actions. For example, Magic Arrow. It's a basic attack spell. So that one is for Arcane. The Divine one is basically the same. They just call it Smite. But it's basically the same thing. Basic difficulty, what the qualities it has, if any. And, Primal is the same thing, 1,000 bites. So you can kind of build the same spell over and over, but depending on who casts it, it can be very different narratively.
I like the layout of each one of these entries, where he's got, like you said, the difficulty, the qualities that are added, additional effects, and then a nice little, what do you call it, like flavor text or trapping. Flavor text.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the effect.
Exactly. And then he just goes over the mechanics. Exactly.
I think it's awesome.
That could be so a few cool illustrations there as well. Mm-hmm. So that can help a player out. And if he wants to modify a certain spell, like his Magic Arrow, well, I want it to be more ranged. Well, okay, that adds a little bit more difficulty, and that's about it.
Yeah, I did have there are a couple of corrections in here that I saw. I haven't gone through every single one, but I noticed under Curse, Evil Eye, on page 15, it should be Formidable. Should be 5 instead of Daunting.
Okay.
And then under Heal, called Spirits Strive on page 17, which is the Resurrection, that should be Formidable as well, instead of Daunting 4. So
Okay, so maybe a little
just wanted to
correction.
throw that out
Maybe
there.
Scott could do that if he ever does a little correction. You can update his document.
Yeah, a little
maybe.
errata. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
not
yeah,
too
so
bad.
those were this is solid, man. I like this.
Yeah.
I like this.
That's it. Even the conjure spell, let's see, for Arcane and Primal. Yeah, I like some of the names. And my axe, or and my bow.
I know. Those are good. Those are pretty good.
Kind of good. With some examples of also for summoning creatures. So
Yep.
that's always good.
Oh, yeah.
And the page numbers for the creatures.
And the goblin, that's actually on page. The goblin's actually on page 152 instead of page 13. There.
Oh, all right. So
Which
Scott,
I love those goblins,
a few
man. Those are
corrections.
great. Yeah. But the summoned creatures are those minions, and I like how we combine. Like here are the number of creatures that you can. Here are the creatures that you can summon.
That's it. A bit like a chart, like in the other D Shift 7D system that has summon monster spells. So you have a list.
Is a nice. There's a nice sidebar for that as well. And speaking of that Shift 7D system, looking at this sidebar over here, having like the GM be able to approve what creatures you summon. Actually, in 5th edition, D Shift 7D, the GM gets to pick which creature is summoned, not the player. So that might be a little something if you guys are playing with that. That could add an interesting wrinkle to it.
A setback or a despair. You summon, even though you succeed, maybe you didn't summon the right thing.
Yeah, you summon a shark instead of the bobcat that you want, or whatever, or the saber-toothed tiger. She wanted.
Yeah, or some kind of demon instead of your dire bear. It's like, oh,
Absolutely.
I think I dialed the wrong number. Sorry.
Watch me pull something out of my hat.
Yeah. Rah. Whoa. Wrong hat. So something like that. And real quickly, 2 new magic actions he describes: mind and move. So move is a bit like telekinesis and some other systems, moving stuff hither and there with the power of your mind or your magic. And mind, of course, kind of learning the surface thoughts, arranging memories, controlling them, charming them.
Right.
Right. Go over that with the different difficulties. So
and there was something the dominate effect here.
Yeah.
There's a slippery slope
yes,
in our hobby here, where when you have a GM controlling a PC's actions or a PC controlling an NPC actions, it could be a little slippery there. And this dominate effect, I did not see anything taken into account about like the target of this effect.
Right.
And I know we're going to go into magic a little more, into more detail in our main section of the show, but under the curse section in the core rulebook, 213, it says when bad like curses that can really take over somebody's mind or whatever, blind them or something, should be opposed checks. And I think there should be something here with dominate, or taking ranks in discipline, or I guess resilience, like it says there to do.
That's taking into account the target's mental fortitude there. That's a difficulty. So you could upgrade those purple dice to challenge dice.
Exactly.
Automatically. If the target
there are already some limitations on this. I mean, he does have it in here that it's not a concentration skill, so you can't just keep dominating someone from round to round.
Exactly.
Unless you're constantly rolling and succeeding.
And it's going to be very hard to do, too.
It's going to be very hard to do, for one. I mean, it's impossible to do unless you have an implement or a talent that reduces it.
Exactly.
There you go.
That's a very important point, too. Yeah.
And then the last part of it is, you've got to it says right in the wording here of dominate that you must define what you want them to do when you are casting the spell. So you can't just I'm gonna make them do something on their turn. I'm going to make them do something and then wait to see what happens. No, they're going. They have to. And I think I honestly think if you're going to make if you're a player and you're making an adversary do something, adversary ranks should come into play always.
Oh yeah, I think so. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's it. You can't just send a blanket message like I'm going to dominate him and leave it at that. It's like, no, I'm going to give him a message to his mind saying, turn around and walk at the end of that pier and jump off.
Jump in that shark-infested water.
That's it.
That's right. That's right. And then what my dungeon master did to one of my characters just like the other day was he said, okay, you failed this. You want to protect this person getting attacked by your party. Do what you're going to do. Leave it up to, like you said earlier, Tony, before we started the show, leave it up to the player to decide and have them act like they're going to act in that situation. Character act in that situation.
In the case of the one time I have dominated someone in Genesis, it was a few, second to last game of Terranoth that we played, where a dagger possessed one of the players, and I just recruited her to my side.
One of the characters.
I said,
because Jen did what her character did. Holy crap, she'd be in jail.
Yeah, I just recruited her to my side. I said, hey, Jen, you're on my team now. Come on over here.
Right. Exactly.
And try to kill these guys.
That's it. She still gets to decide how she's going to go about it. But
and then what she chose to do. Holy crap. Jen, that was great.
Story.
That's a whole nother story, but that was great. So, anyway.
All right. Sorry, Stefan, we derailed you there. Go on.
No, it's fine. And then he's got his other magic action move, which, like I said, is telekinesis. It's fairly straightforward.
Definitely.
You can move additional targets, larger targets, faster. You may select unwilling or secured targets, so a bit more difficult, but something that is anchored. And then actually teleport. It actually adds
you can teleport it to you. That's awesome.
Right. That's great. That's pretty sweet.
Exactly. And then he adds a new magic skill if you want in your setting. A bit like our Epsilon Eclipse, where we use psionics. There's no magic. There's no arcane. They call it psychic.
Yep.
So he describes it as being a neat way of introducing maybe move and mind. They have access not to all the actions. They can do attack, barrier, and utility, as well as, of course, mind and move. Mm-hmm. Not all the other ones. They can't heal. They can't, conjure anything. So that's a short description of psychic. You can expand on it at your own leisure if you want.
Yeah.
And then a short description on how to create custom implements. So if you're not happy with just scepters and staffs and rings, this can help. Like even a psychic could be technological implement, like some kind of circlet around his head that amplifies his psionic abilities. It doesn't have to be a magic. It can be something that's a crystal that's created by the Gaul and Stargate. It looks like magic, but it looks like jewelry, or it could actually look like high-tech stuff that you see sometimes maybe in Japanese animation.
I must say, this creating custom implements, he hit this is perfect. This is great. And it's only it's less than a page. And the information here is so good that it'll just help you create, ignoring a difficulty, ignoring 2 difficulty, and the times 4. It looks like he has a multiplier of 4 of those. The cost of it to create a magic implement.
For example, like an implement, the magic staff would cost you the base 250 because it does add +4 damage. It also ignores 1 difficulty for range. Mm-hmm. So you would add 250 plus 150. And that would be the cost to create a staff implement.
Yeah, well done.
Oh.
Very cool.
Good job, Scott.
So, yep, thank
Scott,
you.
well done, man.
So apart from those little maybe discrepancies of difficulties in page numbers, very good job.
Yeah.
But those little arrows can sneak in no matter what.
Oh, definitely.
That's not a big deal. I like the fact that his introduction seems to be from a character called Zenithrix, and I can imagine that being an ancient dragon or ancient elf like Elrond.
I thought of Volo when I started reading the start of it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a Volo's thing. Hey, here's what you're going to do.
And when he describes the two new powers, towards the end, here are the secrets of the mind and how they can make your thoughts tangible. Many have sought these secrets, but few have unlocked them. I now open them up to you because, let's just see what happens.
Nice. That's good.
That's a cool little
quote. The first-person point of view there is awesome.
Yeah,
that's it. Oh.
Yeah, I love it.
There we go. So there we go. So thank you for that. And hopefully, Tony?
Yep. Well, creators and Foundry Masters, we hope that Stefan has boosted the signal and at least one of our tens of listeners goes out and buys your product. Stay tuned. We'll have more boosting the signal in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for this new segment.
You're welcome, buddy.
Welcome to 50 Pieces of Awesome. This is where our good friend Chris goes out and scours the interwebs for something user-created fun. And you've got something new for us this week, buddy. What you got?
Oh, I got something new. Which was actually posted, it looks like, yesterday by Seebeck. It's a Genesys RPG fan site that has a gear creation and price app on it. You can go to genesysrpg.netlify.com. I'll have the link to it in the show notes here. And you can go create some armor. And I'll tell you, he said that this is a work in progress, but as it is, it's very intuitive, very clean user interface, and pretty slick. So for your armor, you could choose your options on your armor. You could choose the soak, the defense. Whether it's then there's other options like reinforced, has extra hard points, reduced encumbrance, and then these suggest at the very top of this page a suggested price, a suggested encumbrance, and suggested hard points for your armor. And this is slick. And then you could go do a weapon as well. You could create a weapon. And you choose your options for the weapon, what skill it uses, what range does it have, the damage that it has, and he's got a little checkbox here, and clicking on it makes it a brawn-based damage, which is like, say, +2, +3, whatever. You can select your crit rating, and then there's a list of all the item qualities, which is fan-frickin-tastic. And then the output of this, again, gives you a suggested price for the weapon. There is a lot of potential here for this, which is slick.
Very cool.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. Oh, I like it.
This is great.
I just went through and I just thought, you know what? I'm going to try making something. So I was making a piece of a weapon, and I'm like, I'm going to choose to make a brawl weapon, and I want it to be like this really big gauntlet that does a shitload of damage. And it's in brawl weapon, it's engaged range, it's +3 brawn +3. It's got a crit rating of 4, which, and then I think I gave it breach and sunder and inaccurate and prepare 1.
What was the price?
600.
Perfect. There you go. That is awesome. I ended up commenting on making a suggestion on the in the thread where he posted this, where the item qualities here, you could kind of filter them on what skill you choose. Now, I know some item quality, or have a checkbox to turn on that filter. Because, why shouldn't my knuckle dusters have the blast quality? Right? Right, I mean, if you want. But this is slick. I like it. I can't wait for this.
Easy to use.
For what you're going to be doing next, what you're going to be adding onto this, Seebeck.
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty awesome.
being able to like export that into like a stat block for a weapon and name it would be even like better.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Little
Throw that
PDF
suggestion
card
out.
kind of thing.
Something you can screenshot, send to your players.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, and I also asked, like, what kind of enhancements are you thinking of doing? Again, work in progress, but this is I needed to mention that today for 50
good
pieces
starting
of awesome.
point.
Yeah, I know we've been doing a lot of, PDFs and a lot of fan created stuff. We've done a couple other websites before, and here's a website that he's creating. That's great.
Very well done.
Very good. Well, there you go, Seebeck. For your work in progress, you've got 50 pieces of awesome from all of us. Hopefully that'll help maybe build some more stuff.
Awesome. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Books of Genesis section of the show, where we're going to be talking about magiques and all the new stuff coming on. So, everybody, open up your Books of Genesis. Thank you, Stefan. We're going to be touching the core rulebook on page 210, Realms of Tiernoth on page 115, and the Expanded Player's Guide on page 98. So what I'm going to go over a quick overview what we're going to be going over here. So magic. We're going to be going over magic skills. We're going to go over the narrative and structured uses of the magic actions and what those are. We're going to go over the narrative uses of each type of magiques you can cast. Then we're going to talk about the magic actions and maneuvers, and we're going to build a spell. We're going to create an example spell using the new the new actions that are in the Expanded Player's Guide. And then we're going to talk about ways to make those magic actions a little easier with implements and talents. So, what magic skills do we have, gentlemen, in the core rulebook? Who wants to run?
Well, I'll kick that off.
You want to kick it
Tony.
off? Go for it, dude.
Yeah. So in the core rulebook, we have 3 magic skills: Arcane, Primal, and Divine. Arcane is your magic mage. It is also the one you're going to use if you're only going to have just plain magic in your setting.
Yep.
If you just have you're going to have minor magics, just like I think like a 1920s Cthulhu-esque,
There you go.
you're just going to have Arcana. That's it.
Which is
You're not
linked
going to
to
have all the other ones.
Which is linked to intellect.
Is linked to your intellect.
And
Primal, which
these
is linked
skills,
to your cunning.
The skills are on page 70, by the way, just to let you know.
Okay. Yeah, Primal, which is linked to your cunning, is more of like nature. It's your druid magic. It's your
shamans.
It's your shamans.
Mm-hmm.
It's all those the spirit magic.
Hippy-dippy stuff.
Yeah, the hippie magic. And then the very last one
magic.
is divine, which is willpower based, which is your God-given magic. It's what your clerics or your priests would have in any fantasy setting.
Yep. Templars, paladins. Yeah.
And then we have a couple of other ones that came out in Terranoth.
Stefan, what are those?
Well, we
What did
have
Stefan have to
2.
give us? Okay.
Yeah, Tiernoth gives us verse and rune. And verse is basically your performers, your bards. So they use magic through their voice, their musical talent, instruments, performance. So that would be one way of them using magic. And runes, which are... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that verse is presence-based.
Yeah.
And
definitely your personality, big personality, like bards in another system.
And those are on page
always goes to them.
83 in Realms of Tiernoth. They have like the list of 3.
Right.
So.
And then runes, which is a special Tiernoth as well, kind of magic where basically you have to inscribe runes or use the rune stones that are part of the setting that allows them to use them in different ways other than just what the rune says. They can temporarily rewrite the runes to modify the rune stone and their effects.
Yeah, that's a cool concept. I like it. I like.
And that's intellect based also, right?
Yes, that one's intellect based.
Yes, because you have to know a lot about the runes, which were created by the dragons,
That's right.
and then stolen or taken, copied by the dwarves.
That's right.
Depending on who you believe.
Well, there's that.
Given to.
That's right. Given to. So yeah, so those are the skills that you would add to your setting, or in a setting like Realms of Tyrnoth, you would use to cast your spells. So how the heck? What are spells? How do we cast spells, gentlemen? What's next?
Well, you have to be a spell caster.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, that means that you being a spellcaster means is if your character does not have at least one rank in a magic skill, they cannot attempt to use magic. Period.
Exactly. Unlike stealth, if I don't have any ranks in stealth, I could still hide. Not everybody can sing like Stefan and I. Ho, ho, ho,
No, that's it.
Right? And be our verse bards, right?
But you also have to have a big pointy hat, a long staff, a big beard, and
then show up whenever you mean to, right?
That's it.
Yeah, so that's what it is. You got to have a rank. Got to have a rank in one of those 5 magic skills to do it.
And
Makes
like
sense.
we talked about at the top of the show with our listener feedback, those are locked behind careers,
Yep.
racial abilities in some settings, and in Tyrnoth, we have examples of some of them that are locked behind talents.
Now, what do you mean by locked behind? Meaning I can't purchase a rank in it.
You cannot just buy a rank in it.
There you go. Okay. Yep. And that makes magic special. More. It makes it unique. It makes it hard. It makes it an investment, right? To be able
You have
to
to
do
be
that.
part of that career or have that talent as part of it.
Yep.
To unlock it, to be able to get it.
And you got this. We have this sidebar here.
Yeah, that's basically what I was talking about.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is called Learning Magic, and magic skills are potent and incredibly versatile, although we suggest rules restricting the training of magic skills. As the GM, you might want to consider imposing additional in-game requirements.
That's kind of cool.
Not only does this add more challenge for PCs seeking such power, but it provides an opportunity to underscore the rarity of the power of magic, and to illustrate how it fits into your setting. So a character who wants to advance in thaumaturgy might be required to abide by the rules of a religious order to receive the training. Or your would-be wizard might have to seek out a tutor in order to teach him skills.
Right.
Those are things that you can do in-game to limit power in a setting where you want to limit magic use.
Right. Yeah. Like the Warhammer setting, right?
Yeah.
Magic is, you have to be from a college. You had to have studied at the College of Magic. And if you're casting it without that, you're considered a hedge wizard, and the witch hunters will come get you. So you can have something along those lines, make it more dangerous. Not only casting spells because it might blow up in your face, but if somebody knows you're a magic user or a wizard or whatever, that could be
the equivalent
too.
The equivalent of being unlicensed, because you're basically wielding immense power, basically walking around with a bazooka that you can't be disarmed. So it's like, no, we want to control you, or at least know where you are. And
Exactly.
Another setting where the structure of learning magic is a huge part of that setting would be if someone was playing in a homebrewed Harry Potter setting.
There you go. Yeah.
Where structured learning of magic is a thing, and you can limit even the different spell types that people learn as they go and graduate in such. So
people specialize in certain types, and then even then, they always need that wand as a focus.
That's right.
We disarm them. It's like, they're pretty much, if they do cast any spells, it's much, much more difficult.
Exactly. And then you could limit it to the types of magic. You can only, if you've learned say, Arcane, Divine, Primal are not available to you. That's up to you all, if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, no multi-classing, basically.
Basically. Yeah.
Now, there are other things that provide penalties to casting. And we have a chart here on page 210.
Yep.
Table 2.3 that goes over all those penalties. You want to go over them, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. So what we have here is you'll get a setback die if you don't have at least one hand free. Because it'd have like that, somatic component where you got to do your finger wiggling. If you can't wiggle your fingers, you can't cast. Likewise, if you can't speak and it requires speech, you'll get 2 setback dice for that. If you're wearing... That's right. If you want to wear the pauldrons that what's-his-name wore in like the Dungeons and Dragons movie, you're going to get setback die because you're wearing too heavy armor. And this would be heavy armor is considered armor with at least 2 soak. Or if you're carrying a shield. Or other restrictive outfits. I'll let Stefan think.
Like a straitjacket.
Like a straitjacket. There you go. Straitjacket. Or you're gagged and bound. Right there, Stefan. That would impose 1 setback. It would be
the 2 setbacks if you're gagged.
That's true, but 1 setback if you're wearing heavy armor, or carrying a shield, or if you're in a straitjacket. And then there's also this is where it really gets into really fun stuff where the GM can do, kind of at their discretion, upgrading the difficulty once or more if you're in circumstances where it's hard to concentrate, whether you're swimming, whether you're hanging from a rope, whether you're in a sandstorm, whether you're fighting in hand-to-hand combat, trying to cast on somebody who you're not fighting with in hand-to-hand combat or something like that, so you're very distracted or whatever. So, yeah. Or if you're in a blizzard, like if I go outside and try and cast a spell, it's going to be pretty hard. Because it's cold as hell out there.
If you're not properly attired, like, you don't have your pointy hat and big beard and staff.
Well, see, there you go.
If you're not fitting the role,
you can make that.
If you're not fitting, if you don't look like the role, then you can't
do it.
It's more difficult. If you look like
you are a harsh GM.
Yeah.
Yes. If you look just like Apu in the Quickie Mart, no.
So there's also so the next thing we have here, there are using magic in narrative encounters, and this kind of goes into whether you're not in like a structured combat versus like narrative encounters as well. But there was a couple of highlights here on page 211 that I wanted to mention. There are 2 very important things, mechanic-wise. When you cast a spell, that requires a check. You suffer 2 strain after resolving the check. Now, this is after resolving the check, and this is whether it succeeds or not. And the reason why I say 2 strain after resolving the check, you will not be able to use those advantage to heal that 2 strain during that same casting, right? So after you've casted. But if this is the second round of combat and you suffer 2 strain from a spell you cast the previous round, you can do that. Yeah, if you all follow me
recover
there.
Those.
I agree.
Yeah,
and you can recover strain accrued previous to casting the spell, basically.
Right. And there's another thing just above this, which is bolded and highlighting. This kind of gets your mind into the narrative aspects of casting spell. It says, one good guideline for magic, however, is that accomplishing something through the use of magic should be rarely as easy as accomplishing the same task using the skill designed for it. For instance, if you want to use something like if you want to move a key across, or your lockpicks across the hallway to pick a lock, as a magic user, finger wiggling magic user, it's going to be more difficult. Skullduggery check. Right. It's going to be more difficult than a skullduggery check to unlock.
And the rule of thumb as a GM is to make that 1 more difficult. But sometimes there may be a case to make it 2 if you're trying to do something really outside the box.
Right. Or an automatic upgrade if it can be risky.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you mean? You're disarming the bomb with magic? Oh, let's go. Don't need a story point there. Just flip one of those purple to red.
Before we get into the narrative uses of all of these spells, there is one more thing that we should cover, and that is that magic has its own set of uses for threat and despair.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
These are nice.
And that's a chart on page 211. So just a single threat or even a triumph can be used on this. But,
or despair, you mean.
Or despair. Sorry. A single threat causes the magical energies exhaust them, causing them to suffer 2 strain or a wound. The controlling player's choice.
There we go.
So that's this
Feedback.
took some of your energy. And
more than you thought.
Or it's not only it affects those around you, and as a single threat, you add a boost or a setback die. Geez, I'm getting them all backwards today. To any attempts to cast spells of allied spellcasters in the area.
That's nice.
Until the end of your next turn.
Yeah.
How long have you been playing the narrative dice system?
Exactly.
I've been talking longer, and I still can't get that right. So
this is the one I've actually used on you, Tony. This next one, 2 threat. Spell doesn't take effect until the start of the next round. Or it says a minute in narrative gameplay, right? It kind of delays. It doesn't go. The spell doesn't go off, for a little while. It's like, because I still want to kick your ass. And
what do you mean the door's not locked? What do you mean the door's still locked? Wait for it. Wait for it.
I do like the other one, which is kind of the opposite of what you just said, Tony. The last one you said was until the end of the encounter, enemy spellcasters add a boost die when casting a spell. So you'll you boost the enemy's spellcasting. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And then, what's 3 threat or a despair going to do, Stefan?
There's a bit more nasty stuff that can happen. For 3 threat, the spell is slightly more powerful than expected. One character of the GM's choice is targeted or otherwise affected by the spell as well.
That's always fun.
So your attack spell not only hits an enemy, but your ally also gets blowback.
That's right.
all other spellcasters and creatures attuned to magic energies within a day's travel become aware of the character, and depending on their disposition, may be very interested in finding them and doing them harm.
I've used that one on you guys. I did that with the Terranoth group.
You sure did.
Yeah, there's a powerful spellcaster, and I'm hungry for magic right now.
That's right.
Let's go.
Go ahead, Tony. This next one is the despair. The single despair. That's
a single despair, the character overexerts themselves and loses their magical connection and is unable to cast spells for the rest of the encounter or narrative scene. That is brutal to do to a caster, especially considering, like, some people, like, I know we have a certain player in our group that is really, really focused on casting spells, and when you take that ability away from them, they ain't got shit they can do. Like, I'm going to just stand here and swing a knife.
Exactly.
Johnny, one shot.
Do you have a ranged weapon? I am a ranged weapon, but not anymore.
I'm a glass cannon that's out of ammo.
And then the GM picks the target of the character's spell. If the caster is an NPC, the controlling player picks the target of the spell instead.
Oh,
so I've had a player decide when I cast a despair as a GM, I had a player decide, you know what? He's going to target all of his minions directly in front of him with that instead. Okay, he just killed all of his minions. Fuck.
Nice. Oh, so the 2 ideas here for double despairs. Oh my gosh,
the first
so nasty.
Go ahead, Chris.
Character completely loses control of the magical energies, or just draws the wrath of their deity. suffering a crit. You get a crit by casting a spell. And then it could take, at the DM's discretion, of course, could take the form of a hilarious misfortune, maybe temporarily being turned into a woodland creature, which is hilarious. Being struck by lightning on a clear day. You just freaking get hit by lightning.
That's it.
Swap bodies with somebody.
Bodies. That was great.
That would be hilarious. That would be so fun. And then the other one.
The light. Oh, sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead, Stefan.
So just seeing the lightning, on a clear day, it's like, oh, I think Zeus is displeased with me.
Exactly. Or even summon the avatar of Zeus, going, "Hey, boy, you shouldn't have done that." And then this last one is kind of near and dear to my heart because my little D Shift 7D barbarian the week ago survived a Staff of the Magi being broken at ground zero. Right. So he survived like 800 points of damage, and that's not wounds, it's damage. But that was so sweet. So yeah, two to spare. You could break somebody's implement. You could break their magical item or whatever, just completely destroyed. And you definitely want to do some wounds to
that's
them.
it.
Small little mushroom club, right?
Yep. It's just holding the little handle of his wand's like, oh my god.
And maybe during Advantageous Threats tonight, we can pick something off of this table.
Maybe, hopefully. Hopefully.
Let's hope. Because that's always good.
Right on. So we want to break down those narrative uses now, right?
Yes. Yeah, so what kind of stuff can we cast? What kind of spells can we cast? What types are there? Who wants to take that one?
There's different actions, yes, that we can use magic for. The most common ones in the, of course, in the book of Genesis, core book, we've got attack. These are just very generic names, of course. Attack, augment, barrier, conjure, curse, dispel, heal, and utility.
Exactly.
Well, let's pick a couple of these.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
some of them are fairly straightforward. Go ahead, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's pick a couple of these and talk about their narrative uses.
Yes.
I think a good one to start with would be augment.
Yes, that's a nice
spells,
flavor. That could be a nice flavorful one, definitely.
That's one where, a lot of times you'll have players who are tempted to just continue to augment throughout all narrative encounters.
Mm-hmm.
But
your buff spells, basically.
yeah, but when you determine the effect of an augment spell, you can see the actions over on the other side, and of course, you and your players may want to try something not covered by those effects, such as temporarily repairing a weapon, so
That's
that
cool.
you can continue to wield it. In this case, you set a difficulty by looking at the difficulty to repair the item.
That's cool.
And then add one to it. So,
right, following what Chris said earlier, that try to do something with magic as opposed to doing it with an actual regular skill is always a bit more difficult. So instead of using your mechanic skill, you're using magic.
And then you can help somebody. So with the augment, you can help somebody out, like if they're climbing a wall or if they're keeping like your horses galloping and going through. You could just narratively say, "Yeah, I'm going to augment." The horses, and we're going to keep going.
Yeah, their endurance, and they can.
And each one of these,
going to give a player like the ability to climb up walls. That's still something that would be covered by augment. Given someone like the spider climb ability, so to speak.
Exactly. And
whenever you're trying to improve their capabilities in some way, in some fashion.
Exactly. And each one of these types, and each one of these types of spells, like that Stefan listed, has a magic skill associated with it. So arcane, a couple of them do. So arcane, you can't augment somebody with arcane, but divine and primal skills you can. Now that's just what they say here. You don't have to follow this, but they've created this list with linked magic skills to kind of balance them out. So you wouldn't be able to heal with Arcana, but you can with Primal and Divine.
That would be in a setting where you have multiple types of spellcasters. If you're just like Tony was saying, a setting that only uses arcane, maybe that one skill can use all the different types of actions, but there might be some other conditions in your world.
Exactly.
If you're running a kind of East Texas University, well, yeah, you can use all kinds of magics, but you need a spell book. That could be one limiter.
Yeah, there's all kinds of limiters out there. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I want to talk about when I'm talking about the narrative uses of augment is that originally in the core rulebook it said if you wanted to turn someone invisible or make them fly, augment would be the way you do it, and the difficulty would be of at least hard difficulty. Mm-hmm. However, we can scratch invisible off that list because we now have a new magic ability in the expanded player's guide called Mask, which covers that, and it's one of the narrative uses of that skill now, specifically to turn someone invisible, as well as one of the active action uses, structured combat uses.
Nice,
right?
Yeah, so that's your illusion. So mass spells create illusions of light and sound. So that's exactly what that is. Yep. Skills you linked to it is just arcana. Yeah, this is your illusions, your illusionist, if you want to create one.
That's it.
Cool.
There's nothing that says you can't augment someone by making them shadowy.
Exactly.
And you could have a primal character, or maybe primal character who's making someone camouflaged, which is practical invisibility. You turn them into the predator camouflage.
There you go.
Yeah, or their image is blurry and they're actually 5 feet away from their actual position.
Or if somebody say if like Tony's character is we're in this social encounter or whatever, right? I might want to mask him and kind of give him a nice glow and backlight him, right? With mask. Would I use mask for that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just like your camera, there's filters for that. Make him look more beautiful. Increase his presence.
Or maybe if you're Bard, right, might be playing a song using verse from Realms of Tiernoth, give himself a spotlight. Beep, do like do like a light show, right, up in the tavern.
And that is one thing. Those spells the spell actions and the spell narrative uses in the core rulebook, you also have to check Tiernoth when you're looking at what they can do, because there is a chart on page 115 that covers what all of the ones in Tiernoth can use, and verse can also augment.
Oh, it can. Okay.
And that would be the magic skills and actions chart, table 218.
Yep.
And that just covers expands upon what's in the core rulebook on what ones can do what.
Oops, excuse me.
So it doesn't include the 3 new ones, but I'm sure we'll get some guidance from FFG on that.
Oh, exactly. I would think you would be able to mask with verse. Come on. Create yourself a light show, light and sound? Come on, man. You totally need to do that with the Bard.
You mean Jolly Spacepaw?
That's right.
Well, that's neither here nor there.
Exactly.
But, you guys got one you want to bring up? Stefan, how about you? Is there one that you like that you want to talk about? The narrative uses of?
Narrative use, well, some can be pretty cool. Like when you're conjuring, if you need a specific tool, but you don't have it, even if it's not in combat, you need a particular, a wrench.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it could be something like that. Just need a new tool because your fighter just broke his sword. Well, there's no blacksmith around. Well, summon another sword.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
I like the utility spell, the utility type, because there's so, and this is basically whatever doesn't fit everywhere else fits in utility. And they're like your little minor effects. Like maybe you would be able to use utility to cast that light on yourself while you're, playing your mandolin or whatever.
Right. That's my backlighting right there, utility.
There it is. Yeah, that's what it would be. It'd be utility. And then it'd be an easy check, it says, right? A check to cast a utility spell should always be easy. Unless it seems too easy for the things you want to accomplish. Yeah, so it's
lighting candles real quickly, cleaning yourself off of some mud.
You probably wouldn't need a check for that. You just kind of do it, because
those won't be cast in combat anyway. I just want to season this
right because
potato salad.
Yeah, I mean, and I like utility because it's you're not really using it in combat. It's more of your narrative uses and utility uses of things, right?
The cantrips, but you would use magic for little things, okay. Animate the broom to sweep up the front stoop.
So, like, if my finger wiggling wizard is in a library and he's old and he doesn't want to get up to get a book, he'll just use utility and levitate that book of necromancy over to the desk that he's studying at because he needs to, he wants to become younger or become a lich or whatever. Whatever he wants to do, right?
Well, that's it. It wouldn't be covered under the new action of move because he's not doing it in combat. It's like just in his study.
It's simple.
Don't bother.
Mm-hmm. So let's see here. So do we want to talk about the narrative uses of these three, the new types of spells, the three new ones?
Yeah. Let's. Unfortunately, poor Stefan doesn't have his EPG yet.
Not yet. It's been shipped, but it's still at the post office box.
Awesome.
So he gets to learn alongside our listeners.
There we go.
Exactly.
I will act as the pupil and ask lots of stupid questions.
Right. So I'll start with Mask, if you don't mind, Chris.
Go for it, dude.
So Mask, this creates illusions of light and sound. These can be images of people, creatures, and objects. So alternatively, the caster can also wrap illusions around themselves or someone else, masking their appearance or with a different countenance. The illusions may look fearsome or beguiling or repugnant, but they're simply phantasms with no form or substance, and they cannot interact with the real world in any way. So when you use Mask in a narrative situation, you first check the mechanical rules at page 99 for casting the spell, and that's in the expanded player's guide. That's the chart, and see what effects are listed there, and then you can use the listed difficulties to figure out how hard the spell should be. I'll remember that Mask spells only create illusions and can merely alter what the eyes see and ears hear. I was going to say what eyes and ears see, but I guess that would be dumb. And maybe what the nose smells. And what that means by maybe is that you actually have to, in order for you to actually have it affect the sense of smell or the sense of taste or the sense of touch, you have to add the realism effect.
Gotcha.
Which is a single difficulty.
Yeah, single difficulty, yep.
So to make it more realistic and have it affect one of those other senses, you gotta crank it up a notch.
Well, there you
kind
go.
of reminds me of the glamour type of magic that the Fey creatures would have. Or you would use that to create an illusion of a carpet over a pit trap.
There you go.
So the average or beginning difficulty for Mask spells is 2, average difficulty. And then you go up from there.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh.
Could you create multiple images of yourself with this kind of spell?
I see that in the page 100 under the structural effects.
It looks like it was easy.
Structural uses. Nope.
Well, that's illusions. Well, if you go back one page, what's easy?
Sorry, it is easy.
The default difficulty is
easy.
My
my bad. I read something wrong. The difficulty is easy by default. The difficulty of spotting the illusions is, if someone suspects they may be in the area, is an average vigilance check.
Or perception.
If they're aware or suspicious of it, it could be a average perception check.
There we go. All right.
My bad.
Cool.
I read the wrong one.
That's all good.
All right.
Sweet, dude.
Well, I'll let you take the next 2.
Next 2? Mm-hmm. No, we can go back and forth. It's all good. So Predict is the next one, which is linked to Arcana or Divine.
And Mask is Arcana only. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. And so Predict, this is your prophecy. This is foreshadowing, looking into the future. it doesn't use, if you've got a good GM, you're not going to give them the entire future. You'll give them bits and pieces and have them put it together, and if they fail to check, you can still give them information, it just won't be right. or if you generate a bit of threat or whatever, it might not be right. So when you want to use this in a narrative way, you're looking into the future, say for the next day, would be an average difficulty. If you wanted to look ahead, to the next month, you can increase the difficulty to hard. The next year would be daunting. And then really anything beyond that would be like formidable or whatever. It's like that would be one of those things where it's like, okay, so when am I going to die? How am I going to die? Those kinds of things. Well, spend a story point, make a formidable prediction check, and you know what? I'll let you know. And you know what? As a DM or GM, I will make sure that happens in that way, right?
And I like the last line in the narrative description.
Yeah, go ahead.
A significant amount of threat or despair may make the prophecy especially inscrutable or vague. Make that shit cryptic. Cryptic as hell.
Cryptic as hell. They need to get like the Cryptonomicon or whatever like that to freaking figure that prophecy out, right?
I'm going to spend weeks deciphering this omen. What the hell?
Oh, your middle name is Nostradamus? Okay, yeah. No, you won't be able to figure this out.
No. And would this predict action also maybe include other little abilities that will allow you to, let's say, scry or have the ability of clairvoyance to see in other places?
I do believe so. Those upgrades on it. Let's go. So let's go to the
that be something?
The
structured
part.
uses. Yes.
Let's
so
see. Now, what do you got?
The
Go ahead,
different
Stefan.
structured uses. The very second one, scrying. Instead of making a question about events, the character may learn the location of one silhouette 0 item within long range. They must know what the item is that they are looking for before they cast the spell, and what the spell does not reveal is how to get through the obstacles, such as locked doors, hidden passages, or traps along the way.
So where are my damn keys? Where are I left my keys?
It's the find your keys spell.
There you go. So basically, the basic difficulty, the default difficulty for making a predict check is average, and this will allow you to. You can ask one question about the events that will unfold within the next 24 hours. You can't use concentration on this. Okay. And the first entry onto that table, though, their additional effects is what's called Quicksilver Reflexes. So instead of asking a question about events, you can add 2 successes to the results of any initiative check you make. During the next structured encounter that you participate in. So if you're in this if you're narratively using it and you want to predict what's coming on, instead of asking a question about it, you can just add 2 to your initiative roll or whatever, which is cool.
So you sort of are ready for the next few seconds of the future.
Yeah.
Yep. You got a premonition about something that may happen in the near future. Oh, look, you get a boost on you get 2 extra successes on your initiative.
Exactly.
Because crap.
I knew this.
You knew it was
social
coming.
Conflict was going to go sideways, and we're now in initiative slot 1. So,
wow, exactly. I would think cheating death would be worth more than just +2 difficulty. Though that still makes it a daunting check, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I mean, look what it does. It
foresees a possible doom for themselves.
So in addition to asking for a question, the character foresees a possible doom for themselves in the next 24 hours. Once before the end of the current session, when the character would otherwise be incapacitated or killed, they may spend a story point. That's why it's only 4. To have them suffer wounds and strain until they reach, but do not exceed their wound and strain threshold. Instead, their survival must be described narratively, taking into account that they saw this potential death coming.
They're asking, am I screwed? If I open this door, am I screwed?
So
possibly. All signs point to yes.
That's cool.
That's an iffy spell to use because you've got this cool effect that you get in the future.
Yeah.
But if you drop at that exact moment when you have absolutely no story points, Uh-oh.
I know. Uh-oh, yeah. You didn't quite see what you saw. Right? Maybe you're too drunk. When you might have
At that point, I probably would just maybe forego. If they don't have the story point, they get dropped to incapacitated and just forego rolling the first critical. That's probably
that's not a bad thing since they spent the strain to cast the spell or whatever, right?
Right.
And they succeeded.
They're just unconscious. They didn't die, and they're not in threat of dying because they didn't get a crit. So
that's great. That is awesome. So let's see. So the next one, you were going to ask. So the transform.
Yeah. So it's only available to primal.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's your freaking
roll out.
It's your druid, right? It's your shamans. So like lycanthropy, it says here, you alter your physical form into that of a creature. But you can only go ahead, Tony.
You can only do natural creatures, not demons or skeletons.
Exactly.
Skeletons are natural. You can find skeletons.
Dragons.
Not animated walking skeletons. They are.
They got to be like an animal, like a bear, or a kitty cat, big kitty cat. So narrative uses,
while the caster may look like an animal, they still think like a person. They still maintain their personality.
They still
and their psychological identity.
That's right, but
that doesn't say here whether you could talk in animal form.
No, because it depends.
Bears don't talk.
you use well, we'll get into the basic use of transform here, but narratively speaking, though, when you're wanting to use it narratively, your difficulty will start off at like average, and it basically ranges on what size creature, what size animal you want to transform into.
Squirrel.
Silhouette 0, average. Average
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros, gonna be probably 4 because rhinoceroses are probably silhouette 2.
Okay. Simple enough.
Yeah. And then you would increase, and then you could increase that difficulty if you want to be transformed longer than just like say the round. But going over to the structured use, you can concentrate. You can continue to be in that form. You have to spend a maneuver to concentrate on it, though.
And back on mask, also, that is one that can be concentrated on as well. I missed that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thing to point out there, Tony.
So you can maintain illusions in combat.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. So the default difficulty is going to be an average difficulty. And like we said, so this is the structured part. When you're successful, till the end of your next turn, you could transform into a silhouette 0 animal. Okay, and it must be natural, like we said. So when you're transformed, you adopt the physical appearance of the animal. You get the animal's characteristics. Yes, everybody, all 6 of them. You get their soak, their wound threshold, and their defense. Plus, you get any animal's abilities and equipment. Now, remember, that's abilities. There's a difference between abilities and talents. So if you transform into, say, a big cat, and this is kind of cool because on page what page is this? 86. They have creatures, sample adversaries, 86 of the expanded player's guide. There's a list of creatures that you could transform into. So looking at, say I want to turn into like a big cat. The ability, I get ambush predator. I get pounce. But I would not get the talent swift. And swift allows you to move through difficult terrain, okay? So that's kind of the rub there. You don't get the talents, but you do get their special abilities. That kind of balances.
But you get to retain your own talents.
Yes, you do get your own talents.
Skills, talents, and strain threshold, which is important because you're a caster.
Yeah, and then
so you can't just transform into an animal that has a really high strain threshold and then
No, it's the wound threshold that you get. So what's that next sentence there, Tony? Because this is kind of flavorful. This could be pretty flavorful. This is important.
This is basically, it's the same thing all druids are in other settings, and that is if your character is incapacitated while transformed.
I was talking about the one before that. When they retain their skills, talents, and strength threshold, they drop any gear or clothing they're wearing. while transformed, right? Okay, yeah, so go ahead, go to the next.
Yeah, you drop your shit when you change.
Yeah, you do.
At least you don't rip through it.
Yep.
Unless you roll a bunch of despair. Then as a GM, I'm like, oh, your armor? You transformed so fast, it didn't just fall off. You broke through it.
You broke it. Oh, dude, that's a nice use for threat or despair. Absolutely. So you were going to say, so if you become incapacitated while you're transformed, what happens?
If a character is incapacitated while transformed, they revert back to their normal form. When they revert back to their normal form, they heal all wounds suffered while transformed, but they do not heal any strain or critical injuries.
Interesting. Okay.
And if they were incapacitated due to exceeding their strain, their wound threshold, they are no longer incapacitated
because they got all their heals back, or they get all of the wounds back.
Yep, get all their wounds back.
They heal all wounds suffered while transformed. So if you start with like half your wound,
beforehand, then
you would go
still
back.
Have that. You would be at that wound threshold.
Right. So the players out there would want to keep track of, probably have a separate column if you're going to be transforming into the teddy bears and whatever.
Post-it note.
Yeah, post-it note. Perfect. Just keep track of what your wounds were beforehand.
Right.
And then there's some additional effects.
Yeah, so cool. And I found the one that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And that was the characteristic retention.
That's a good one. Go ahead and talk about that one.
When transformed, the character retains their intellect and willpower, rather than the intellect and willpower of what they transformed into. Mm-hmm. I would think that also conveys the ability to talk.
I would think so too, because there's really nothing keeping a dog from talking, right? Just the fact that he doesn't know how to talk. But it's not like a physical thing. It's a mental thing, right? Yeah. So that's cool. The other one that I wanted to definitely point out on, so all of you shamans or druids who are primals that are going to be transforming into stuff, because I was building my own primal shaman, need to make clear what silhouette you're going to be transforming into. So, if we go back to page 86, I want to transform into a bear. Let's say, all right, so I want to transform into a bear. What you'll want to do is you'll want to look at the silhouette of the creature you want to transform into. There's a silhouette increase effect. So for one difficulty, you can increase your difficulty. You can increase the silhouette you could transform into. Adding a difficulty, you could choose this effect multiple times. This is special. This is one of the few magic actions that you can add the same effect multiple times to. Okay?
Right.
So keep that in mind. So start off at 0. I'm gonna need to transform into a silhouette 2 bear. So, all right, so right there. That's a daunting check right there, to turn into a bear. But what do I get if I turn into a bear? Well, I don't get Adversary 1 because I retain my own talent.
That's right.
But I do get Silhouette 2. However, I get to hug somebody with my claws and using a brawl attack, do 7 damage, crit 4, which isn't too bad, but you know what? I'm going to be spending my advantage on this concussive 1 quality. And I'll knock them on their ass, too, with knockdown. So this could be fun. Wounds, 21 wounds. Soak of 5. Damn. Though, intelligence of 1, willpower of 2. So, that's pretty slick.
Nice.
And you could, and for 1 difficulty, you could transform the gear with you. So you don't have to, when you come untransformed, you don't have to be like a naked
your
little...
stuff melds into your body?
Melds into your body. That's for 1 difficulty.
But not in your hands.
Mm-hmm. And then there's something called dire form, where you can transform. Basically, you do a dire form of the chosen animal. You increase the damage of the weapons by 3, soak by 1, wound threshold by 6, and a silhouette by 1.
Nice.
That's freaking huge.
So you could just choose a 0, 1, instead of making a... You could choose a 0 and make it the dire form, so you could make a dire weasel.
Yes, or that dire squirrel that you've been wanting to...
That's
or
it.
dire
squirrels for the win.
No, dire rabbit. Put all your holy hand grenades away, everybody. Here comes my dire rabbit.
Dire raccoon with a rocket pack.
So here's something else. So what's this last one here, Tony? Curse of the Wild.
Curse of the Wild. Instead of transforming yourself, you may transform one target within short range into a silhouette 0 animal at the character's choice. I think that means of your choice.
Of the character's choice. Yep.
The casters, yeah.
You, the caster.
Yep.
Following all the rules for transformation.
So tough, though.
Yeah, you turn somebody into a mouse, or turn them into a newt.
Or an infernal chicken.
Or an infernal chicken. Yep. She turned me into a newt.
That's right. Why a newt, Sawyer?
Anyhow.
But that's going to be 3 difficulties. Go ahead, Stefan.
Sorry, Stefan.
No, I just said I transformed him into a newt because he needed an eye for my stew, for my potion.
But cursing somebody is going to be a formidable check because it adds 3 to your difficulty. Now, again, this would be one of those effects like Dominate. It'd be an opposed check in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Even though it doesn't say it here, it would definitely be an opposed check. Now, maybe not on a minion because that's fun, right? But
you're going to apply ranks and adversary to it for sure.
Apply ranks and adversary, for and then be probably a
but something
opposed
you're
check.
going to have to concentrate on.
It is.
And if you're doing it to a big monster, I would definitely.
It's an opposed check.
Have it be an opposed check.
Yeah, discipline probably. Now this effect, like other things, it does last until the end of your character's next turn. So the following turn, if you still want to concentrate, you'll want to concentrate the next turn, right? So it's not on the turn you cast it; it's the end of the next turn that you'll come out of the transformation. So I don't think we specified that, but.
Another thing that I was thinking is that your transform is only the primal that they can do, right?
Correct.
It's only primal.
So it seems to be their way of being able to curse someone in transforming them into an object. Because curse also includes like being turned into a toad, for example.
Exactly, and that's Curse
where
of
we
the
describe.
Wild thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's where, just like in curse. They suggest maybe the target's discipline or resilience might be taken into account to upgrade the difficulty.
Yep.
Yeah, and what it would be is, if they don't have adversary, this is my rule. I would have adversary upgrade the check. If they don't have adversary, add their ranks of discipline to the check.
Right.
And if they're a big bad like a dragon, do both.
Yeah.
If they're a major nemesis, like a ancient dragon. Do both.
So
throw in ranks of discipline and.
So ranks of discipline would upgrade the difficulty. Purples to reds, right? Got it. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Or resilience.
Of course, that assumes that the target is unwilling. If you've got an ally that says, sure, transform me into a giant eagle. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. I want to fly.
You don't need to upgrade them. I'm giving you a boost die. I'm willing.
Turn me into a squirrel so I can get out of this nasty situation. Yes.
That's right.
We need someone on the other side of the door to unlock it. Okay, transform into a mouse. Go on the other side and unlock it.
Nice.
I'll just cancel the spell once you're on the other side.
and that most of the time is going to be a narrative use, which then you just would go into back to the narrative uses of it.
Exactly.
So, I think we've pretty much covered the new ones pretty well. We've also got, like I said, those honorable mentions. We've got Mind and Move that were in Zenithrix's guide. And Stefan brought those to bear. Did you have anything you wanted to share?
What'd you say? To bear? I see what you did there, Tony.
To dire bear.
But is there any further description you wanted to do of those, Stefan, or are you happy with what you did earlier?
No, I think we're happy. You know, those abilities, I think we went over them a little bit too. So, mind to alter a person's mind, their memories and so forth, and move to just actually do the telekinesis thing, especially against their will, like throwing them against walls and ceilings.
So, and wanted to mention, we talked about it a couple times already, but there's a resisting magic sidebar on page 214. And right here's where it suggests that high-level adversaries such as Nemesis usually have a rank or 3 in the adversary talent, which makes them much more of a challenge in a fight. His talent upgrades difficulty of all combat checks. So obviously attack spells are automatically going to be upgraded. But, however, other spells may seem like a way to get around the adversary talent. However, they recommend that you upgrade the difficulty of any spells targeting an NPC a number of times equal to their ranks in adversary, no matter what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's an automatic recommendation. So then when you're talking about those taking away free will spells, adding, making it opposed and then upgrading by adversary is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically that last sentence here. It basically will make those nemesis feel dangerous. It will make them feel like a nemesis.
Well, exactly. You're not going to just dominate the Archlich or transform him into a toad. Not so easy. If you do, great. Go with it.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Then you can gloat that, grab the frog and you go, I'm going to barbecue those legs.
Nice. But when you do, then they transform back into their original form.
Yeah.
Right, if you transform,
by that,
when they're on the grill, they'll turn into right.
Yeah, but by that time, hopefully, they're already cooked.
There you go.
So we've talked about all these different things and how the spells work, but really, I mean, when we think of spells, a lot of us have this mindset of Vancian magic. A spell has a certain name and it has a certain thing that it does. And so how does one get there? Like Scott did in his document. He came up with names for all these various. How do we get there? So let's build some example ones.
Let's do it.
There we go.
Let's do it. Oh, one thing we wanted to mention, I think we mentioned this before, was when you are building your spell, we're talking about adding difficulties, and because of these different effects, the maximum difficulty for a spell is going to be formidable, which is 5. But this is after any reductions that are applied to the spell. Now, reductions we get in the form of what? Implements can reduce the difficulty. Talents. So, just got to keep in mind what that is for building our spells. So,
well, that's it, because you could have a difficulty go even higher than formidable, but you'll have to have those implements to handy.
That's why we said it's got to be
below. Exactly, to at least 5 or lower.
Yep, 5 or lower after any reductions. So, well, let's build one.
Yeah, let's start. Stefan, why don't you build your divine attack for us?
Right. So I thought of simply divine attack based off of my Shining Tar campaign. You have a deity called Arcanon, being of light and protection and justice.
Cool.
So he's got Arcanon's judgment, which would be almost like a bright eye shining above, maybe out of the holy icon of the priest, to blast his opponents that are maybe vampires or liches or shades.
Sweet.
So basically, I start with a base difficulty of 1 purple, which is the base difficulty of all attack spells, which means it's a short range spell.
Gotcha. And that's on page, let's see. So that's on page, and you're doing what? You're doing attack? That's on page 215, the structured use of these. That's kind of where we're at right now.
That's it.
For it.
That's it. So, base difficulty 1. Then, in this particular example, I want to make it deadly.
So you're adding effects now.
An effect, exactly, to it. So, adding deadly adds 1 purple difficulties. We're at 2.
Cool.
It adds to the spell a critical rating of 2. Because that basically, unless it has deadly, your spell will not cause critical wounds.
It'll crit on a triumph only.
On a triumph only, right. Sorry. And then it also gains vicious equal to the characteristics, ranks and knowledge of the spellcaster. So,
and I want to add a sidebar to that, if you don't mind, because there is a sidebar in the expanded player's guide. So they talk about the linked magic knowledge skill for all of these things, and they don't really say what it is, what's a default. Well, they've now added in the Expanded Player's Guide a default magic knowledge skill called Knowledge Supernatural. And that will be in one of those sidebars. And that's going to be on page, I believe, 99.
Yep, 99. At the bottom of page 99.
And so that's your default one, Knowledge Supernatural. But otherwise, the setting itself will tell you, and for instance, in Terranoth, it's Knowledge Lore.
Right. So whatever.
Sorry, Stefan. Continue.
Yeah, go for it.
So whatever ranks of lore that the priest would have, let's say, for example, in my example, 3, that means that spell now has Vicious 3.
Nice.
And then I added also Empowered for 2 purple. So we're at a total of 4.
Empowered. What's empowered?
Now, Empowered deals...
Oh, there it is.
The attack deals damage equal to twice the characteristic linked to the spellcasting skill. So in this case, for Divine, I believe it's Willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So instead of base, let's say a Willpower of 4, his base damage would be 8.
Gotcha.
Nice.
And if the attack has Blast quality, if in this case not, then all the characters within short range are also affected. But in my example, only the one target would be. And then I would add Holy because it's a divine spell. It will allow him to deal even more damage, basically, to creatures that are the direct opponents, the antithesis of the character's faith.
But wait,
there's more.
Holy is 1 difficulty. That puts you at 5, right?
Yes, it does. But since he has a holy icon, a holy symbol, which allows him to add basically the holy for free without increasing the difficulty.
Nice.
So if you want to go through the math, yes, it adds +1, then reduces it by 1 again.
But he could still cast it if his implement fell on the ground.
Yeah, because it's 5.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. If I were to add another one, well, like Blast, then he would definitely need to be sure to have his implement on him.
Right on.
Very cool.
So that would be a total of 4 difficulty to cast.
So, if this is something like you would write on your character sheet, if you wanted to continually do a spell like this, and this is something, just give it a name, give it a cool effect, like Stefan said, it's this...
Arcanon's Judgment, that's, particularly nasty against vampires.
Yeah.
Burns them to all hell. And the benefit of Holy, of course, is that it deals 2 points of damage per success instead of just 1.
That's
nice.
Right.
Yeah, to people who are the antithesis of your alignment, which
exactly
not of your alignment, but of your character,
of his faith, or whatever it is, the faith that's determined. In this case, light against darkness.
Right.
So you're undead. You'll probably blast the undead Arcanon, right?
That's it exactly. So with Empowered, he causes maybe a minimum of 8, and then for every success, an extra 2 points. Plus, it's deadly and it's vicious. So
that's gonna hit like a truck.
Yeah, Arcanon's judgment can be very harsh.
You have been judged.
Yes, and found lacking.
There you go.
Well, I chose to build a curse, and I was going to use the arcane skill. But in my typical method, I like to keep it simple. And I wanted to make a curse called the Bone Rack, or Bone Rack, and that's with a W. Bone, W-R-A-C-K. So what that invokes in me is the vision of someone's bones just racking with pain, and they can't move.
They're being twisted, broken.
Like they're on the rack, right? They're just being stretched.
So I go to my big old nasty curse chart, and I think,
buddy.
Well, I like the normal of effect curse, but curses starts out at 2 average difficulty.
Yep. And that chart's on 217, by the way, if y'all are following along.
Okay, and this creates what does that curse do? It decreases the ability of any skill checks that target makes by 1 skill die. So, in effect, that's what it'll do in effect. However, I want this to freeze them. I want them to be frozen in pain.
Right.
Well, I'm going to make it paralyzed. So the target is staggered for the duration of the spell. This effect may not be combined with the additional target effect. So I can only do it against one opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds 3 difficulty to my spell. So I'm already at 5.
And staggered means no act. You can't act. They won't be able to act. They can't do it. They can move, but they can't act.
The pain in their bones is so severe, they cannot concentrate to do anything except for maybe clawing their way forward, moving.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah, just a maneuver kind of thing.
So you're removing a green from any check they make while this spell's going on, and you're going to take away their actions.
Yep.
Good Lord, which means they can't really make any skill checks. Well,
unless, but you know,
unless you do what you did.
Right.
Wow.
So that's simple. That's the simple version. I can't make it any more powerful unless I have implements, and which I can do, and I will explain that later.
Yeah, there we go.
So
cool.
All right, what you got, Chris?
Hey, either one of you want to ride? Yes, that's the name of my spell. I
called it Uber. So.
I'm going to cast. Well, this is better than Uber. Trust me, this is better than Uber. So, a primal transform spell. I'm naming this. Do you need a ride? And if you go to the Realms of Tyranoth book on page, what you call it, 104. I'm going to be transforming into a flying mount.
Nice.
So what do you do first? When you do that,
well, check the silhouette.
Check the silhouette. We got a silhouette of 2 for a flying mount. So this would be one of your Rocks of the Baron or whatever, Giant Eagle, call it what you will. We're going to get Hippogriff. Yeah, Hippogriff. Call it, so silhouette 2, which means we're going to need to add the silhouette increase, which is going to add 2 difficulty. And like we said before, transform is an average to start, so this is going to be a daunting check to transform into this flying mount. However, we don't get the dodge 2 talent, but we have an encumbrance capacity of 12. Ooh. And the reason why I'm doing it is because we will have the flyer ability from page 100 in the core rule book, so we'll be able to fly around. So with an encumbrance capacity of 12, you might be able to have 2 people ride or whatever.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's do you want to ride? Or did you call an Uber?
Yes.
Did you call a fantasy Uber?
I called an Uber Griff.
Uber Griff. There we go. The Uber Griff. Oh.
Very nice.
That is freaking cool. You want to know why? Because I have an idea for our campaign, Tony.
There we go. Totally
got a freaking business we're going to be creating. and so if you're listening, Jamie... No. So anyway, so that's your transform. There's an example of transform.
So those are magic actions, and that's how you do them. And you're going to do them in combat during a structured encounter or even a social encounter. Some of these might work.
Exactly.
Cursing someone in a social encounter is doable.
Mm-hmm.
Augmenting somebody in a social encounter is doable too. Yeah.
Now you could heal somebody in a social encounter, couldn't you? Because it's all about keeping a strain up.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So those were actions. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to have magical maneuvers. You got to have to be able to do magical maneuvers. What do we have for maneuvers?
Go ahead and take the first one there, Chris.
Oh, yes. So for a maneuver, you can counterspell. So mages and spellcasters, you can attempt to counterspell. So you take a maneuver, and the effect of this would be any caster, any opponents within medium range, upgrade their difficulty once until the end of your next turn. So that's huge.
And that's to cast spells, period. So it doesn't have to be divine versus divine or whatnot.
Right.
So even though only Arcane has access to Dispel, every caster has the ability to counterspell somebody else.
Right. Because my primal magic's going to be messing with your finger wiggling magic there, Stefan.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's like overloading the area of magical energy, or just twiddling with it, making it more difficult for the other
or
casters
flooding the area with my primal spirits. Right? Could be swirling around your mage, making it tougher for him. Yeah.
You can come up with a descriptive effect to that. When you go into a counter spell, what you're doing. Are you chanting, for instance, let's say maybe you're chanting prayers to your god so loudly that the whole area is reverbing with your voice.
I love it.
Or like Chris said, you're a spirit shaman, and these spirits of animals and nature are just floating around the area, distracting the spellcasters. There's all kinds of ways to look at it.
And I think I'd encourage everybody to just add a narrative effect to any magic you do. Really anything you do in this game. These you can
have fun with it.
Yeah, have fun with it. That's why we play.
That's it. These are generic spells, so you have to liven them up and describe. You're not just like, attack spell that does deadly and blast and fire.
Right. Yeah. So make these.
Dress it up. Come on.
Yeah. Make these.
That sounds like a damn fireball. Is that a fireball?
Right. Damn straight. And you know what?
Imagine if you describe it well enough, maybe your GM will give you a boost die.
Why would you ever ask for a boost die? Oh wait.
I don't know. Anyone would ask for a boost die concentrate. So,
all right. What's next,
Stefan?
Yes.
What's the other maneuver?
The other maneuver is to concentrate, basically, because some spells you can make last longer, not just on the on your round or for a round or two. So if you take a maneuver to concentrate, so some magical effects might require concentration to sustain. If the action can benefit from this, it'll say, and then you simply declare that. Make sure you tell your GM, I take a maneuver to concentrate on my augment or my curse.
Yep.
And make sure that the effect lasts for another round. So, and it doesn't cost you any more strain because the spell's been cast.
Right.
You just declare that. And if you want to do a second maneuver, though, that's where you start going, do I sustain the spell? Or let it drop and do something else?
Exactly.
Or if I do it, well, I'll still take the maneuver I want. I still need to move out of range for some, or into cover. Well, you'll have to take some strain, maybe.
Exactly, because you have to take another maneuver. So keep this in mind. If none of these types of spells fit your setting, and you're going to create your own type of spell, you gotta know whether you can concentrate on it.
Yeah.
And what magic skills can cast that type.
Right.
I think Terranoth should have another maneuver that bards, people who do verse could do, but only in dimly lit areas where they're in groups. So you have orchestral maneuvers in the dark.
Oh, there's your dad joke.
I cast a line really far away to get that one and reeled it back in.
Very good, sir. Very good.
Well done,
a comprehensive list of the magic actions that can be used to concentrate: augment, barrier, conjure, curse, and mask, and transform.
There you go.
So that is all of them that can be maintained. You can't maintain an attack.
No.
Nope. You can't maintain a prediction, because you're going to get a prediction and that's it, right?
From Zenithric's guide, you can maintain move, but you cannot maintain the mind. You have to test over again. Here we go.
So
we have two last things to do here.
Yeah, they make casting spells easier. What do we got?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, Stefan liked mentioning his earlier. That was the magic implements.
He always likes mentioning his magical implement. Oh, wait a second. We're talking about.
Yes.
Anyways.
And so there are two hard and fast rules when it comes to using magic implements. The first is that your character can only benefit from one implement at a time. You can't be dual wielding wands that have multiple effects. Not going to happen.
Or a staff and a wand.
Right. So if your character has an orb and a wand, they have to choose which one they're casting the spell through.
Or a ring and a wand. No, not so much.
No.
The second is holding an implement does not impose setback dice on your check for
Even
not
if I
having your
don't
hands
have.
free.
Okay, so even if I have like that two-handed staff, I'm good.
Doesn't matter because it does not. It says right here in the hard rules that it does not impose setback
Nice.
dice.
So I have a sword in one hand and a wand in the other. I'm good because I got my
good.
wand. Cool. All right. Like it. I like it.
All right. So they each have different effects, and there's several of them listed here on page 219. Don't need to go into all of them. There's also a couple of them listed in the Realms of Terranoth, and I can't remember off the top of me what page.
Page 98.
There you
Page
go.
98. Thank you, good sir.
They add a few more as well.
That would be the runes and the instruments,
Gotcha.
and the. There's one more.
There's Magic Tome.
Magic Tome.
Oh, there we
That's,
go.
And the musical instrument.
Gotcha.
that's right. And then also the runes, the rune shards also count as implements.
You know what I would do?
Yes.
You know what I would add? I just thought of something like for a primal to do for like a transform. Have like some like magic like pauldrons or something like that as like an implement, maybe.
And that's something you
'Cause
can
there's a-
design using Xenothrix's rules.
There's a druidic circlet.
The circlet,
They do the conjure spell. Yeah, that's cool.
And Stefan already mentioned the holy icon, which enables
Yep.
it adds holy for free and increases the damage or the wounds healed to healing spells by 2.
Yeah. So typically, what these implements will do is they'll reduce the difficulty on an effect, make an effect be added for free, or it will add an increased effect, like you just mentioned, Tony. It'll increase the number of wounds healed by 2, or like a staff would increase the damage by 4 on an attack spell, and add the range effect for free. So
Now, I want to mention one of these because I think they're really cool and I like the way they did it,
Cool.
and that's the magic ring.
oh yeah, go for it. Let's see.
Magic
What we got?
rings are items of great power and danger in most fantasy settings. The One Ring.
My precious.
So their rings are designed to be items of great power and peril.
Nice.
When a character obtains a magic ring, the GM chooses the type of magic skill, then select 3 effects that can be added to the spell, or added to spells cast by that skill.
Bam!
2 of the effects are normally increase the difficulty by 1. The third effect will normally increase the difficulty by 2.
Holy crap, dude! I know what I'm going to get. I want to.
So when the user casts a spell, adding those effects do not increase the spell's difficulty. However, here's the drawback.
Yeah.
When using a magic ring, you must always upgrade the difficulty of any checks, any spells you cast with it once, and double despair cannot be spent to destroy the ring. In addition, attack spells by the user increase their base damage by 2.
Whoa! So basically, you're able to add more stuff to the ring, but you go to the risk of rolling that despair, which is
That's
what
it,
we love,
because you're
right?
still more difficult. That's it. Your spell still gets a bit more difficult. So even after
Always
reduction,
upgraded once.
right?
I'm just thinking of like a magic nose ring for my little primal user, dude. That'd be nasty. It's expensive.
The nice
though.
thing about that is it doesn't allow for the most powerful effects to be done.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
What I mean by that is, like, for instance, my paralyzing on the curse, it's a 3 difficulty
the 3.
increase.
Yeah.
Can't
Right.
have a paralyzing ring.
Right.
No.
But you know what? Turning into that big bear will be free. Because I would add silhouette increase 2 for free.
Yeah.
Right?
One that I like is from the Realms of Terranoth, the Magic Tome, which is in some ways a little bit like the ring.
Read that one.
So when your character makes or obtains a tome, your GM determines up to 2 effects that the tome lets your character add any appropriate spell without increasing the spell's difficulty. Of course, the effects the GM chooses should normally, without the tome, only increase the difficulty of a spell by a total of 3. So different effects, two effects, a bit like the rings. So one of them could be +2 difficulty, and the other one could be +1.
That's cool, man.
And I would see, these tomes would be, like a Necronomicon would probably be more like curses.
Could be. Though there could be that tome. Well, you wouldn't be able to, because adding being able to resurrect somebody is adding 4 difficulty.
No, maybe not a tome. That would be a major artifact, but that would be beyond. But a magic tome of offensive spells would work.
Go.
You give it a special name, and there you go.
Or maybe some sort of magical anatomy guide, which allows you to add heal critical for free, which is a +2.
That's it. The anti-Necronomicon.
Basically. Yep. That's cool, dude.
Now, that's the one that's flexible. It's not just +4 damage like a staff.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to call... Chris, did you have one you wanted to do?
I just was saying the magic nose ring.
Okay. I did have an audible I wanted to call, and that is because on page 99 in Realms of Terranog, they talk about implement materials, and that's special materials that you can get your implements made out of that give them even more special properties.
I like this.
And that's something that you'll want to keep in mind when you're designing an implement for your character. They increase the cost. So let's just say, for instance, I'm going to make a bone flute.
Cool.
So a musical instrument normally is 200, and then your bone is going to increase that price by half. So it increases it to 300.
Okay.
Increases its rarity from 4 to 6. And when your character successfully casts an attack or a curse, they heal 1 wound.
There you go.
That's sweet. That doesn't suck. That's kind of cool.
While that wouldn't affect my verse caster to have attack, because verse can't do attack, but golly, they can't do curses, and a bone flute when I curse somebody, it heals me. I like it.
Yeah, you know it. This Hazel one is kind of cool too. So Hazel says it's associated with inspiration, prophecy, and wisdom. So when your character generates a triumph while casting a spell with the instrument, you can roll a boost die and add it to the results, in addition to spending the triumph normally. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Increases the cost by half and increases the rarity by 1, but that's kind of neat. And you can make up your own implement materials too. Just use this as kind of guidelines to just kind of see.
Special metals, special platinum that the dwarves make, or mithril. Imagine mithril.
Yeah, or if you're doing that Harry Potter setting and you want to really dial in what all those wands are made of, because that was a big thing in Harry Potter, what all those wands were made of.
Phoenix feather use this as your unicorn hair. And
yes, you use this as your guideline.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, very awesome. So
last section we want to cover in the main topic here. Chris, what is it?
Yeah, I added this. There are talents in the core rulebook, in Realms of Terranog, and in the expanded player's guide, which
There's a whole bunch in there.
There's a whole bunch in there, yeah. Which allow us to cast these spells, make it easier, make them more deadly. Better. So one thing that we'll start with, we want to start with this one, because this is a question I had to you guys to kind of clarify for me. So in the core rulebook, there's a talent called Lucky Strike, Tier 2, page 76. Let me go ahead and read the words of this one. Let's see here. Lucky Strike, Tier 2, activate is incidental, no ranks in it. When you purchase this talent, choose a characteristic. After your character makes a successful combat check, you may spend 1 story point to use this talent to add damage equal to the characteristic ranks in that characteristic to 1 hit of your combat check. So, my primal user is linked to Cunning. Maybe I'll select Lucky Strike. Can I do this, gentlemen? Is casting a spell considered a combat check?
And the answer is an attack spell, yes.
An attack spell, yes. There you go. See?
Because the wording for the attack spells in structured encounters says in the very first sentence, magical attacks are combat checks. They follow the normal rules for performing a combat check, except they use the character's magic skill instead of the combat skill.
Sweet. There you go. That's my question. That was the question that I had for that. So,
There you go. So they're equal to a combat skill.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now,
So you can apply Lucky Strike to a magic attack
That's
if you're
right.
a primal caster, or if you were an arcane caster,
exactly.
or if you were a divine caster. Does not matter.
How about Quick Strike? Tier 1. For each rank.
Yep.
To add a boost die to any combat check you make against a target that have not yet taken their turn in the current encounter. So there are
That
all
is
these
correct.
other ones. Yeah. So you got to read all the words. Make sure it says a combat check. Because I had a question for you guys on another one. If I had some sort of arcane sniper who wanted to use, oh crap, what page was that on? Deadeye, page 79. Says, Tier 4. Activated as an incidental, no ranks in it. After your character inflicts a critical injury with a ranged weapon and rolls the result, your character may suffer 2 strain to use this talent. Then you can select any critical injury in the same severity to apply a target instead. Is a magic attack the same thing as a ranged weapon?
I would say no,
Yeah.
because it is not a weapon. It's an action. It's an attack,
It's an attack, right?
but it's not a weapon.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't prevent a GM, a savvy GM, from saying, you know what, player, I like the fact that you really want to take Deadeye for your spells. We'll create a different talent that is tier 4, and it's called Arcane Sniper.
There we go.
And that it only applies to attack spells. Does all the same effects that Deadeye does, but it only applies to magic attack.
Yeah.
Or you can
way
call
of
it
saying yes,
supernatural sniper. You can call it supernatural sniper, and it'll apply not only to arcane, but divine and primal, however
True
you
story.
want it. Yeah, that too. But yeah,
Magical
that's
sniper.
Magical sniper. There you go.
That's it.
Well, there we go. So there's that. I mean, there are
Totally
other
neat.
ones. There are other skills like talents like natural. You purchase the talent, it's tier 3. Choose 2 skills. Once per session, you can use this talent to re-roll 1 skill check that uses one of those 2 skills.
And it doesn't limit you from choosing magic, so you can choose magic.
Exactly. It doesn't say
Yeah.
non-combat or
Right. It would say non-combat, like for the, what was that one? Knack for
Knack
it, I
for
think.
it.
That's
Knack
the
for
one.
it.
Yeah.
non-magic and non-combat.
So,
Correct.
what do we have? Do we want to call out any special ones in Realms of Tyrnoth? I have a couple, but
Oh, hell yeah.
there are so many.
I mean, that's where we got our bread and butter of magic talents to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
I
where do
mean-
we start?
Couple of simple ones. Well, I'm going to go with my particular favorite right now, which is Bard.
Yeah.
So, because I'm making a Bard for our new campaign that we're starting. And what that does is it's just a tier 2 passive, no ranks, and it gives the character knowledge, lore, and verse is now a career skill. So this is one of those tier 2, there's 2 of them in this, and this is what we use as an example for how to create a talent that opens the window into a magic skill, opens that door for you, making it a career skill. And that is Bard, and then the other one is Runic Runes. Runic Lore, that's what it is.
Runic Lore is the other one? Oh, I must have missed that one.
Yeah, but they both are
But still.
tier 2, and they both give you access to magic.
Yep.
And that's a great example of how you can give access to magic in a setting
Yes.
where
Later on.
And that's and that's where you would do it. You'd create a tier 2 talent that basically is this. And they've already got what level, what tier would it be? Well, it'd be tier 2. Like that. Right. This other one,
Got it.
Blood Sacrifices. flavorful, if you will. But it does require the Dark Insight talent.
Right.
You can basically suffer a number of wounds to add an equal number of successes to your check. So if you have, I know in another system, you were able to do those kinds of things, and this is a way of doing it here too. You know?
And it's ranked, so that number of wounds is equal to your ranks in it.
Yep, you cannot exceed your ranks in the Blood Sacrifice. So if you pick it up at tier 2, you can do one wound to yourself and add a success.
There we go.
So,
You got something you like, Stefan?
Well, I've always liked the signature spell.
Oh, yeah.
that's a great one.
That's one that can be fairly easy to acquire. Let's
go over that one.
It's a little higher rank. Rank 2.
Rank 2, page 89, by the way.
Yeah, your character has to have a bit of experience, but he knows the spell backwards and forwards. He's cast it and knows it so well that he's written it. It's hardwired almost into his brain, so it's easier for him to cast.
Mm-hmm.
But the downside, of course, is that he cannot modify it. It's, like, for example, if my priest of Arcanon knows his Arcanon's judgment as is, he can't add range to it. It's like, no, it's short range, that's it. But it'll be even easier. It reduces the difficulty by 1.
Yeah, so you pick the effects that you want to add to your spell, lock those down, and then reduce the difficulty. Then there's an improved version, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's tier 4.
Yep.
So, further up.
And the tier 4 version, the improved version, all it does is increase or reduce that difficulty by 2 instead of 1.
Yeah.
No other change.
And you need signature spell to do it.
Right.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So,
Now, the other flavorful thing that they did here in Tiernoth are the opposing talents, I will call them. It harkens back to the opposing schools in the D&D, right? Or the D-Shift 7D, where you've got Chill of Nodros and Flames of Kelos. Tier 2 talents. If your character cannot take... So for Chill of Nodros, your character can't take this talent if they have taken the Flame of Kelos talent. So when casting an attack spell, you can add the ice effect without increasing the difficulty. However, you can never add the fire effect.
no, exactly.
And the Flames of Kelos is the opposite of that. That's flavorful as hell, man.
Oh, yeah.
My ice mage can't cast Fireball or drink Fireball, for that matter. I wouldn't let him
think
drink.
he can drink Fireball.
I wouldn't serve him Fireball if he can't cast it. He can't drink it. Sorry.
There we go.
And then there's also another one.
It's religious.
Yeah, there's another one. Dominion of the Daimora and Favor of the Fae, where when you're the Dominion of the Daimora. You're casting an attack spell. You can add impact for free, but you can't take the manipulative effect.
Right.
Then Favor the Fave, that's just the opposite of that. So, it's kind of cool. You can totally do that in your settings if you create those kinds of things. And
Just playing around with it if it suits your setting.
That's right. What do you got?
Another
Tony?
one. Another one I like is Dissonance for your bard. It allows your bard. So when wielding a musical instrument, your character, and he doesn't have to be skilled in verse, your character may use this talent to make an average charm or verse check, and for each success the check generates, one enemy of the player's choosing within medium range suffers 1 wound.
Oh. So
that's not takes 1 damage. That suffers a wound.
That's different.
No soak,
yeah.
And for each advantage, one enemy affected by dissonance suffers an additional wound.
What? Wow, dude. That's kind of crazy. For each success, one enemy of the player's choosing within medium range suffers a wound. For each
advantage, one enemy affected by dissonance suffers an additional wound.
Wow. So if I have 5 successes and 5 advantage, they'll
Just
take
did
10
10
damage.
wounds.
I just did 10 wounds. No soak. Holy crap. I don't know. I've heard people saying that kind of... I've heard some of the singers nowadays. Holy shit. Yeah, I take damage every time I hear them.
I take physical damage every time I
Yes,
hear
I
country.
do. So you know, I have a birthmark on my face, and I've always thought, and I've always believed, right? Sticks and stones might break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Fuck that. Dissonance will hurt the shit out of you, man. Right?
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will.
All right. You got another one?
Oh, I got the talent
The talent.
you need to take when you can get a tier 5 talent. Okay?
Yes.
It's, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Everybody say it at once. 1, 2, 3. Zealous Fire. It's a tier 5 talent. It's passive. But anytime your game master spends a story point, your character heals 2 strain.
Bread and butter for a caster.
Yeah, it is. So, I cast some spells in this turn. Oh, you want to upgrade my check? Go ahead. I'm going to heal 2 strain for that spell I cast you last round. That's kick ass, man. That is the font of I'm going to continue to. You want to continue to upgrade my checks? I'm going to continue to keep cats and spells. That's sweet.
Do you have any more you'd like to mention, Steph?
A real quick one. The tier 4 talent, which is only maneuver conduit.
Oh, it's a good one.
Once per encounter, your character may spend a story point to perform a magic action as a maneuver.
You want to be able to cast 2 magic actions in one maneuver? Here it is. Here in one turn. Here it is.
Oh, you didn't take enough damage on that fireball I just cast on you? I'm going to cast another
do it
one.
again. Let's do it again. It's coming back for an encore.
Again, that's right. Oh, and
Very
Steph,
nice.
I know you don't have the book, but there are some kick-ass magic talents in the new player's guide. Tony,
Yeah.
what you got there, buddy?
My favorite,
Okay.
the Ensorcelled Tree. There's 3 of them.
What page is that?
Ensorcelled Improved, and Ensorcelled Supreme.
Okay, this starts on
Man, this is awesome for a bard.
95.
So,
we start on.
It starts on page 95.
Got
yep.
it. Okay.
Ensorcelled
What is
is
it?
tier 1. It's active as an incidental, and it's not ranked.
Okay.
If your character has at least 1 rank in a magic skill, once per encounter, they may use this talent to add advantage to the result of their next, a single advantage, to the result of their next social skill roll. Additionally, this is a passive narrative effect. Your character's appearance is subtly enhanced by their magic. Others do not note it as supernatural, but may be slightly put off. This form of enhancement takes up. The form that it takes is up to you with your GM's approval. Your character has divine skill. Maybe they look flush with good health, or if they, or their eyes are flash red momentarily sometimes, or if they're using primal, they may be surrounded by the scent of fresh pine, or their voice may have an intimidating growl to it.
Oh shit, that's great.
So if you have the Arcana skill, your character may have their hair tousled by undetectable winds, or when they wear a hat or a hood, their face might be obscured by deep shadows.
Oh, that is so cool, dude.
So that's Ensorcelled, and then you go to the Ensorcelled Improved.
What does Improved do?
So Improved is tier 2 talent, and you must have the original Ensorcelled to take it.
Got it.
And if your character has at least 2 ranks in a magic skill, your character may add, instead of a single advantage, an advantage and a success to their next social skill.
Nice.
Once per encounter. After purchasing this talent, your character's appearance is now noticeably changed by their magic. What form this enhancement takes is up to you with your GM's approval, but it should be based on the magic skill like before.
So I'm really smelling like pine, man.
Or not only are you spelling like pine, but you also have maybe some budding antlers growing there or something.
There it is. That's sweet.
Little something like that.
Yeah,
and then Ensorcelled Supreme.
Or you've got pine cones between your legs now.
Oh.
Ensorcelled Supreme it says you must have the Ensorcelled Improved and Ensorcelled talent, both of those. If your character has at least 3 ranks in a magic skill, once per session, they may use this talent to force all enemies within medium range to make a hard discipline check as an out-of-turn incidental. If those enemies fail that check, they must spend all available maneuvers moving away from your character. They suffer 5 strain plus 1 additional strain per threat rolled.
That they rolled, okay.
And if your group is using the optional fear rolls, this can be treated as a fear check. What form this reveal takes is up to your GM's approval, but it should be based on your character's magic skill, with the enhancement they possess from the improved Ensorcelled talent. Some possibilities would be glowing golden wings made of light,
nice,
manifesting demonic horns and glowing red eyes, or rising into the air on the power of a tornado, or becoming a figure of pure shadow, or a tree-like humanoid.
What?
All those are suggestions. Yes.
That is great, dude. Holy crap.
Those are just awesome talents.
Those are pretty awesome.
All right. What else you got, bud?
I got a tier 1 talent. That's going to cost you 5 experience points to add a boost die to your check.
What?
If you're casting with a component. So, when your character casts a spell, they can use this talent to consume a physical item and add a boost die to their check. So, when we take a ride, before we do that, I'll say, save me one of those feathers, yo. And I'll use it next time, and I'll get a boost die. Pluck a feather out of my ass.
A pinch of bat guano makes a fireball?
It sure the hell does.
Nice.
So that's a pretty good one.
Bit of spider web for spider climb.
And going with that theme of the primal transformation, all of you primal transformers out there, druids, shamans, whatever, you'll want to take this tier 3 talent called Face of the Wild. It's active, it's an incidental, so no ranks to it. However, when you cast a transform spell on yourself using the primal skill, you may spend a story point to have them use this talent to maintain the effect of this spell until the end of the encounter. So basically, you don't have to concentrate on it anymore. You don't have to use those maneuvers to concentrate. You can use those maneuvers to aim that fucking bear claw while you're charging, right? So that's
very
sweet.
nice. I like this one.
What's
Explosive casting. Tier 3 talent.
Tier 3.
When your character casts an attack spell, they treat the spell's blast quality as having a rating equal to twice your ranks in knowledge instead of equal to your ranks in knowledge. So when your character casts an attack spell with a blast effect, you may spend 1 story point to use this talent to trigger the spell's blast quality by only spending 1 single advantage.
Nice.
So that's got multiple cool ass effects there. I really like that.
Speaking of cool ass effects, Masterful Casting Tier 4, Active Incidental Rank 2 or Ranked None. When your character casts a spell, they may use this talent to spend a triumph to trigger up to 3 different qualities or spell effects instead of 1. These qualities or spell effects must be ones that can be triggered by spending an advantage or a triumph. So if you're casting that, I didn't even have an example for it, but that just sounds cool.
Well,
sounds pretty powerful.
Auto fire,
auto fire, ensnare.
Gives you 3 of them. Woof.
3 of them with just 1 triumph. That's not.
It sounds like there's a lot of talents, a lot of cool stuff in the expanded player's guide.
Yeah, in the expanded player's guide, we go all the way from page 95 to 98, and I think there's something like 25 different talents. So, and I have just one last one. The reason why I want to bring it up.
Go through them all, so.
Right, I have one last one.
Hi.
I want to bring up because it brings a new precedent and so it gives us an idea where to put that. And if we're going to do something like this. So, Tier 4 talent, Polymorph.
Ooh.
If your character has at least one rank in Arcana or Divine, they can cast the transform spell.
Ooh.
However, they can when they use the transform spell, they can only transform into magical or supernatural creatures, such as demons, dragons, angels, and elementals.
Oh.
What this does, it gives us an example of what tier to put at if you want to put a talent into your game that gives access to a new spell type. To, for instance, like vampiric healing for an arcane caster, you could make a tier 4 talent and heal like a vampire, and things like that.
That's cool.
Just sets a precedent that I wanted to bring up. So
I didn't notice that. That's a good. I'm glad you called that out, Tony, because that's awesome. Because we have what, five magic skills, 6 if you've got
runes.
No, what guy? The name, jeez.
First.
Oh,
Xantherix's Guide to Magic by.
Oh yeah, Xanatrix. Yeah,
Xanatrix. So with that you have a 6th one, right?
Right.
But you have all of these different types of spells, and the types of spells 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 if you include mind and move. That's a lot of different types of spells. And you know what? If you can't figure out what spell when you're casting, if you want to cast something and it doesn't fall into any 13 of those or 12 of those, I don't know if there's something wrong with you, but you gotta find it somewhere.
That reminds me, early on when Genesis came out, one of your friends, Chris, created with his kids his own setting,
Brian,
and he included 2 magic actions, one basically shade, the other one illusion.
Nice.
Basically to cover, things about
some that they're
illusion and masking, or I forget the exact name, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, those are cool. Definitely. Yeah. So,
all right.
Shall we take a little break here? Because
I think so.
I think all of you out there, now. You're getting what you pay for now. This could be like a 10-hour podcast here that you got to get through. Feels like. Well, I enjoy this stuff. Talking about this is great.
Yeah, Magic Revisited. I think we revisited it pretty well.
Yeah, I think
we
so.
did. Now, like our relatives a few days ago, we're gonna kick ourselves out of being visited.
Yeah,
to Magic,
that's it.
Right? And we're gonna move on to our next segment.
Yes. All right. Welcome to part 3 of the show. The part that we like to call Advantageous Threats.
Nice.
Because there might be multiple threats. You never know.
Oh, there will be.
This is where we build, roll, and narrate the die results for some sample little scenarios that we write up and kind of like throw each other like monkey wrenches into the other person's works and see how that goes.
Hey, can turn into monkeys now. Got to transform.
There you go. Exactly.
Throwing wrenches at your ass.
Variation on that's it. Kind of variation on the curse spell. Monkey wrench. And we kind of wrote a little bit like last time these little scenarios that sort of are linked to each other, build up on the scenario.
We kind of
might be. Yeah, it might be a theme now. So.
I actually kind of like the theme. I actually kind of like this theme too, especially this one, which takes a nice little twist. So, Stefan, kick it off. That's right. We're gonna have Stefan go first, right? That makes sense. Him, then Tony, then me, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's it. Tony wrote the scenario first, and I got inspired by it.
And I couldn't decide whether I wanted to. Well, you guys will understand when you get to mine. All right, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
All right. So I am re-rolling for Jocasta the Gilded Lily. She's a powerful spellcaster in her own right, and she has sent an assassin to eliminate her arch-rival Arkaz Ramaz, the Scourge of the Burning Sands, or the Scourge of the Sands. Sorry, not the Burning Sands necessarily. They could be burning, but it depends.
Yeah, I went with a theme that these guys are in Al-Kalim in the Terranoth setting.
There you go.
Well done.
And she wants, of course, her assassin to succeed and will be casting a protective enchantment upon him, one that may hopefully ward off any hostile magics. So she calls it her Gilded Charm. Basically, It's a barrier spell. She's got just to I know, I mean, because we were talking about magic. We didn't necessarily go over what the mechanics or what the benefits of a barrier spell will do. So that normally does what? The basic barrier spell. So basically, she can keep it up with concentration.
Yep.
Default range is engaged.
Okay. The target.
To cast it. Yeah, to target. Mm-hmm. Base difficulty, 1 purple.
Okay.
1 difficulty. And if successful, it reduces incoming damage by 1 per 2 successes beyond the first success.
Per 2 successes beyond the first. Okay, so
beyond
3 successes is 2 damage reduced.
Yeah.
4 successes. 4 successes, still 2 damage reduced, but 5
successes minus 2.
So make note of that, everybody. I think I've missed that at some point too.
Yeah, so there it is. And she is going to add the reflection quality.
All right. What does that do?
Which reflection means that if the opponent casts a spell at her assassin, and that generates either 3 threats or a despair on their check, after the check is resolved, they can suffer a hit dealing damage equal to the total damage of the attack.
Oh, shite. You were reflected back.
Yeah, exactly. Just bounce it back. Fireball? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Nice. And this effect can only be added for Arcana only.
That's it.
So that was something I don't think we pulled out when we were talking about magic, is that there are some effects that only certain magic skills can add.
That's it.
We did with the holy. We talked about how it can only be used for divine.
You're right. You're right.
A few other magical actions do have some of these.
Yep.
So she's an arcane spellcaster, and this is her. She's named the spell and cast it more than once. It's her signature spell.
Oh, nice.
So, there we go. So it reduces this difficulty down to 2 purple. So she's got 5 intellect. She's very smart. And 3 ranks in arcane. Making her 3 yellow, 2 green.
Wow.
And again, of course, 2
and 3 purple?
2 purple difficulty. There we go.
3 or 2?
2 purple total.
Now, I'm assuming she's doing this immediately before the assassin enters Azzmodeus' tower, correct?
She's very close by, yeah. So she'll be able to maintain the spell once he's moved off.
Well, I would like to impose 2 setback dice due to the fact that it is the pitch of dark of night.
Aha, yes, of course.
Oh, yes.
Why not? All right. I'll just go ahead and ask, of course, for a boost die, because this assassin she's worked with. Well, this assassin she's known and works with before.
He's known.
He knows the spell effect, and they have a good rapport, and is willing to accept the spell.
I'm not giving it to him, Chris. You give it to him if you want to.
Oh, because he's going after your character? You know what? I'll give you that, though, okay?
Yeah.
However, I'm also going to flip a story point.
Well,
because Arkaz Remaz, you said you're casting this near his finger wiggling sorcerer tower, right?
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Well, he's got some shit on there that could fuck up casting. That if it's not him or his,
you never know.
Or
exactly. Some of his wards on his tower.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the wards are kind of spreading out, kind of affecting her. So yeah, let's
never know.
Sucker.
All right, so let's go. I'm not going to spend a story point. I'm just going to let it stand.
There you go. Perfect.
And there you go. So we've got a couple of blanks. Remove those real quick. All right. So we've got a couple of threats, a couple of advantages. They cancel each other out. And
out or out?
No. They cancel each other out. Yes. And unfortunately, no despairs, but no successes either. Just an advantage.
Well, advantage. What?
Wow.
So.
And what was this again? This is a barrier, huh?
A barrier spell. So she fails basically to cast her barrier. Some of the wards, do because it's the failure actually came up on the upgraded dice, the challenge dice.
Oh no!
Yeah, so
My wards are doing that
the wards
job.
did dispel the barrier spell she was casting, but she did give an advantage. So maybe any spell cast at him will impose a setback on the very next spell. Not all spells, but one spell.
The very next spell cast at him gets a setback back.
I like that. That's not bad. It's a minor. It's a pseudo barrier. It's something still got through, but she wasn't.
That's it. So instead of having the glittering aura that then diminishes as it's cast, it's just like a couple of glows of dust land on his shoulders, and that's about it. And he just stands there going, "Really? Is that it?
Yeah. Oh well. Okay.
Is that it? You gilded lily? All right, fine.
Nice. Oh wow.
All right.
This is going to cost you double then. All right, fine.
There we go.
And he goes off into the tower.
All right. Well,
Who do you got,
my
Holmes?
character, the Archmage Arkazramars, Scourge of the Sands, will be fighting an assassin sent by an unknown enemy in the dead of night. He will be using Bone Rack, his curse that I developed earlier.
Oh, there we
He
go.
will also be using. While he did not get up quickly enough to don his Archmage's robes, he was quick enough to quickly pull a wand of enervation.
And a
Capture.
loincloth.
Yes. So he's standing there casting his wand with his Bone Rack curse with his wand of enervation. Now, enervation is an effect that can be added to a curse for 1 purple difficulty, and a wand allows you to add that for free.
Cool. Innovation.
Yes. And that its effect is
That's on page
that
217.
if the target suffers strain for any reason, they suffer an additional strain.
There we go.
That does
So,
suck.
Arkazramaz, being the Archmage that he is going to have 2 yellow, 2 green to cast that. So I have that. And then the spell itself is normally 4 purple difficulty. That's 5 purple difficulty, because it's the 2 for the normal curse, and then +3 for the paralyzing effect on Bone Rack. So 5 purple difficulty.
Right.
And I guess since it's the next spell cast at the assassin, I'll get that setback die.
You sure will.
Dice right there.
It is the dead of night, so 2 setback dice there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an adversary 1. Yeah. He's a tough assassin.
Yep. So
Okay.
the assassin entry in Realms of Terranoth in the Al-Khalim section does have adversary 1, which means that one of my 5 purple will become a red. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
Oh, I think that it would flip a story point, because as the assassin, of course, enters the room, there's a small glint of light on a pin that he's wearing, and he recognizes the symbol that it's my former student, Jocasta, who sent this assassin against me. And she knows, some of his tricks.
Nice.
Very well.
And the
Very
student
nice.
kills the master, right?
Chris, would you like to add anything else, or are you good?
I think you guys have covered it there, really. I mean, you got the setback because of the advantage on her check.
You know what?
I don't think so. I think he...
He's going to have a little bit of bowl of bone dust nearby, which will allow him to add and grab it and use as a component caster to add a boost die to his check.
There you
Why
go.
not? There you
that
go.
works.
Grabs a pinch of bone dust for his bone rack.
There it is. I like it.
All right.
Very appropriate.
There we go. So
Do it up.
Is this the
First of
assassin's
all-
last job?
Yeah.
could be. All right. So I had one of my red dice came back blank.
Oh.
So grand total, I had 3 successes, 4 successes. So I'm going to succeed. However, this attack is going to generate a ton of threat.
Uh-oh.
It is going to generate a total of 4 threat and a triumph.
Oh. Nice.
Oh, shit! Okay,
So, so glad that barrier doesn't reflect my spell back at me.
No,
but it
no.
wouldn't, because it only reflects attack spells.
Exactly.
And she failed on it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
But it wouldn't
still.
anyway. But So yeah, 4 successes. I don't have the advantage to trigger I have the advantage to make. I don't need advantage for anything.
You know what?
He is
So
paralyzed.
4 threat. You have 4 threat, right?
Yes, 4 threat.
What do you think about this one there, Stefan? All other spellcasters and creatures attuned to magical energies become aware of him.
Why not?
That's for now. That's for 3.
Or
How many threats
what's the other
were
one
generated?
for 3?
Slightly more powerful than expected. One character of the GM's choice is targeted and otherwise affected by the spell as well.
Oh, there we go.
Probably gives Stefan the effect that he wants.
Yeah, kind of a reflective backlash.
That's true. You know what? That's really good.
So it's the glint of the assassin's pin that I hit, and it reflects the spell back at me. Ah!
Just a remaining echo of Jocasta's spell.
And then I think the threat, the last remaining threat, we can use that second result up at the very top. This character and all allied spellcasters in the encounter add a setback die to cast spells. Because, and if you don't mind me starting my turn, Zindal Tipthil Zszree is in this encounter too. He is a desert shaman. He's a wandering gnome primalist. His good friend Azzmodeus, the Scourge of the Sands, just got fucked up, and he's gonna say, "Hey, do you need a ride? Let's get just GTFO, buddy."
Yeah.
So
why are you talking to me? Come on, move.
Yeah,
move your ass.
Why aren't you talking? So I've got these 2. So here we go. So this is actually going to be pretty kick-ass. So he's going to transform himself into a, wait for it, desert eagle, flying mount. Woo! Not the gun, but a desert eagle, an eagle from this. So he's gonna try and GTFO his buddy out of here, and maybe this assassin too, because he knew his buddy wanted to question him, and turn into a giant eagle. He might be able to do it. So he's got a primal skill of, or he got a cunning of 4, 2 ranks in primal, and that's gonna be that'll be 2 yellow, 2 green. Now what I built up before, building a flying mount, silhouette 2. So I'll need to increase the silhouette I could turn into. So that's going to add 2 difficulty to this, and the base difficulty is 2. So my difficulty is going to be 4 purple, and a setback die because, the threat my buddy did.
Right.
However, I've transformed into an eagle before, and I pull out a feather from what I used before. So I got component casting. And I start stripping down, baby. Because I don't want my clothes to...
Right.
So I got butt-ass naked.
So as a maneuver, you thrust off your nightgown.
Yes, I do. Here we go. All right, let's
stand
go.
in the guest bedroom next door.
The very short nightgown.
And I'm going to ask for a boost die because I think it's pretty cool that a silhouette 0 character is turning into a silhouette 2. A big-ass eagle?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Rule of cool? All right, cool. Rule of cool.
However, I'd have...
The top of the
although
tower.
you're trying to save me as a GM,
Yeah.
I think it fits to flip a story point and say you're trying to turn into a silhouette 2 eagle in a room in a tower.
Right.
You may not be able to fly out of here. You may be too big.
I might not have been...
Hopefully.
He doesn't have an intellect 2 for nothing. So, right? He don't need intellect.
Spatial dimensions, like what?
Yeah. Okay, so I have 2 yellow, 2 green, 2 boost. I got a red, 3 purple, and a setback die. How's that sound?
There we go.
All right.
It's pitch black. You should have 2 setback dice.
2 setback dice. So 2 more setback dice.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Zindal Tiptilzari. Or Zindal for short. Let's see what we got.
Zin for real short.
Zin. Well, there's that.
Wow. Doesn't sound good.
Oh, no. This is going to be good. Because we have a whole lot of failures, successes, and what we're left with. 1 success.
Oh.
Yeah, at least one.
1 success, but 1 threat. So maybe I take some strain trying to squeeze out of the room.
Yeah, a couple of
I think 2
extra
additional
feathers.
strain makes sense.
Or 2 additional strain. That's true. That's right.
Yeah.
So Zindal, the Desert Eagle, Zindal picks up his buddy in one claw, the guy in the other one, and takes off into the night.
There we go.
GTF Owen.
Very nice. That's a
that's
great
fun.
Advantageous Threats, guys.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, let's end this puppy.
I think so. All right, so time to wrap up this puppy. I think we've talked long and hard enough. We're running out of spit. So I want to do a little shout out to a fellow Nerds International Network podcaster, The Murder Hobo Show, which features Jerry McCallum. And recently our favorite Uncle J-Raz has joined him. I don't know if it's for long term or just a couple of guest spots, but I've listened to the latest 2 episodes. And they're kind of funny. They admit, they talk incoherently and try to sound professional about it.
Kind of like us.
Go give them a listen. Yeah.
Right.
So they talk about all kinds of stuff role-playing game wise. Recent episode, they talked about mind flayers and how you can apply mind flayer concept to other settings. Take a monster from different settings and apply the basic principle of a creature that's of darkness and uses mind powers. Nice. And they even had a segment that they threw in, apparently inspired by me, where they do the naked news. So they talk about taking off their clothes and doing the news. So I don't think it's for real, but you can still have your mental images. You've been warned.
That you just can't unsee. I'm sorry.
That's it.
Picturing those 2 guys.
It's not a video podcast. Thank you.
No, luckily. Even I'm grateful for that. There you go. Murder Hobo Show. Go and take a listen.
Awesome. Well, I have all my clothes on, so I will go over some important reminders and some...
But underneath your clothes, you're all naked.
Well, exactly. You keep thinking that, Stefan. All right, so... Hey, Expanded Player's Guide and a GM screen has shipped. I got mine from the source and not the FFG store. Thanks, guys. Many gamers have already received theirs. Just hit stores on the 29th of last month, a few days ago.
Yep.
Go get Xanthrix's Guide to Magic by Scott Zumwalt out at Drive-Thru RPG. I'll have the link to that in the show notes. And Tony and I will be on the brewery starting this week. We're starting a new campaign that Jamie's running us 2 and Daryl through in the realms of Tiernoth. So, yeah, and those new episodes will be up on the brewery's YouTube channel, which I'll throw in the show notes as well. Is he going to be live streaming it? I'm not sure if he's got that set up yet.
I don't know if he'll be live streaming yet.
Might not be that one.
I hope so. Session 0, he usually live streams, but doesn't record. So
yep, that'll be on Twitch. We normally do that. It's up on Twitch. I'll have that in the show notes too. We do. What time is that at? That's normally 8 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock your time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
6
what are you planning on playing?
What am I planning? Oh, I am going to play Eshak Gutala. He's a Inuit shaman, basically a burrow gnome primalist from the north, from the Great White North that has come down to Tiernoth, who has met up with
Jolly Spice Paw. I will be playing a catfolk scoundrel bard named Jolly Spice Paw.
That's right. I think a shock. He's going to have a Minnesota accent. Don't you know? Because
and of course,
a lot of snow.
I can't play a catfolk without doing a Khajiit accent. So
yeah,
I played a lot of Skyrim. So yeah, and Elder Scrolls Online.
Good. That's
so I've got plenty of Khajiit things to say.
Yeah, let's just say that that a shock will be transforming into will be able to transform into a dire bear.
Whoa!
Yeah, silhouette
Not a
0
dire badger
to silhouette 3, baby.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
hell yeah.
Well, if you guys have suggestions for Chris and I on how to play these awesome characters, or Daryl how to play his Elven Mage,
Oh yeah, that's right.
please email those to us, or anything else you want to talk to us about over at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to myself or Stefan at Finding the Narrative on Facebook. Nerds International and Finding the Narrative are on Mayway, and you can get a hold of us all over there.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan loves to interact with people on the Twitters at FTN_Genesis.
There's more than one Twitters? No, that's good. The Twitters.
Yes.
And listen to us in all the fun places podcasts come from, like Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and more. This is Tony saying, keep rolling them bones.
And this is Stefan saying, don't forget to ask for those boost dice.
And this is Chris saying, remember the rule of cool here from the Great White North, because it's really fucking cold out because I live in Minnesota. But more than anything, just have fun, everybody. Good night.
And I've never
Au
heard
revoir.
of this and more podcast place.
All right.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesis RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned in this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesis RPG podcast. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.